Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the City of Mason. Tonight is our regular business meeting of council, November 29th, 2011. Let's call the roll, please.
Councilmember Nelson.
Here.
Councilmember Chance.
Here.
Councilmember Bradburn.
Here. Present.
Councilmember Stricula.
Here.
Vice Mayor Gilb.
Here.
Councilmember Hunterlaw.
Here.
Mayor Grossman.
Here. We have a special treat tonight. The City of Mason Honor Guard is here to present the colors. If you'll stand with us, we will have our presentation followed by the pledge, and a prayer from Rabbi Kaufmanson is here tonight. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome, Rabbi. Before the prayer, could you tell us a little bit about what we're celebrating tonight? Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Tonight is the second night of the holiday of Hanukkah. We began last night. We began celebrating this. It's an 8-day holiday to commemorate the great miracle that God performed for the Jewish people in the land of Israel as they were being persecuted, but valiantly fought back for their religious freedom over 2,000 years ago. Throughout this holiday, Jewish people light the candelabra menorah each night at the window facing the street. And each of the 8 nights, we increase in the light in an attempt to brighten up the darkness of the world. That's getting darker, but we're doing our best to push that back. We do it one light at a time, but we steadily increase each night. I want to take a moment to congratulate and to welcome our newly elected council members. The community has spoken to your valiant commitment to our great city and have brought you on board to lead by example and to continue making the city so great. Congratulations to each one of you, and I convey God's blessings in your new leadership role. Honorable Mayor, members of council, ladies and gentlemen, citizens of our great city. Let us pray to our Father in heaven to help us realize that the message of this holiday is actually universal. Help us recognize that every human being has been endowed with your light for the purpose of illuminating our environment and eliminating the darkness around us. We pray that we be worthy of this divine task and that we find success in doing your work, O God, here on earth. O God, help us be cognizant of the fact that it is through our unity and acceptance of each other that we become worthy of your blessings. Help us remember that every act of goodness and kindness is, in fact, divine and brings us closer to the promise of a more perfect world. Almighty God, grant that those assembled here to enact laws to govern this blessed city of Mason be cognizant of your presence and conduct their deliberations accordingly. May they respect each other's beliefs and opinions and love one another, regardless of their political approach. Bless them with good health, wisdom, compassion, good cheer, and good fellowship. May our members of council constantly realize that in laboring for the enactment of just laws, they are doing your will, O God, as you have conveyed through the 7 Noahide laws for all humanity. May God bless us that we may be a blessing to others. Bless our great city, along with the United States of America and our entire world, with good health, peace, and prosperity. And let us say, Amen.
Thank you, Rabbi Kay, and happy Hanukkah. All right, item 4 on the agenda we have come to. We need to motion to approve the minutes from the November 8th council meeting.
Second?
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay, I'll abstain. All right. Number 5, city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple of items here, beginning with the schedule. Our regularly scheduled second meeting in December will fall on December 27th. I believe we have most of the remaining business, legislative business for council. Will be ready for action on December 13th with adoption of the 2022 budget anticipated for this evening. I don't believe any additional meetings apart from that December 13th meeting will be necessary. If there is a motion to eliminate the December 27th meeting, it'd be appropriate to do that at this time.
So moved? Second?
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed?
Second, and I'm not sure if the rabbi is still with us or if I know he has to leave early. The Jewish Discovery Center is again hosting, is hosting their annual Hanukkah celebration. That'll be tomorrow at 5 p.m. It takes place outdoors at the Deerfield Town Center. I think this year I'm in front of Dick's Sporting Goods. The city partners with the Jewish Discovery Center each year to use the city's mobile stage to help host that event. And it is free, open to the public, and the rabbi has again generously extended a special invitation to members of council to attend that event. So I want to make sure everyone's aware of that. During the holiday season, the city, together with Mason City Schools and an organization known as Joshua's Place, work to essentially adopt families that may be in need over the holidays, provide both gifts as well as groceries, needed items to help them feel the support of the community through the holidays. Staff, different departments have adopted families. There's also opportunities to drop off new unwrapped gifts. We have collection barrels both in this building as well as the community center for any members of the public that would like to participate in that. If folks would like to work directly with Joshua's Place, they can contact the City of Mason. We can place them in contact with the organization if they want to do something on their own. Also coming up this Wednesday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. is what has become a traditional and very popular event at the community center. The Shop Local event features Mason area merchants and sales representatives sell all kinds of different gift items in time for the holidays. That again will be this Wednesday from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. has proven very popular. Also, and kicking off the season, the city is hosting the annual tree lighting ceremony this Friday, December 3rd. That is at the Mason Downtown Plaza. It is also free, open to the public. It takes place at 6:30 p.m. On the plaza. It features, as in years past, holiday music, photos by the tree, ice skating, train rides, iceless ice skating, I should say, food and beverages. New this year, and don't ask me to explain it, but there's a mechanical snowboard until 8:30 p.m. So something new this year to try out, maybe. The Warren County Municipal League is holding their annual holiday meeting. That is on Wednesday, December 8th at 6 p.m. Please let staff know if you plan to attend. Santa Claus, I believe, is under tentative agreement to make a few stops in Mason this season. On Sunday, December 5th, families can register to have breakfast with Santa Claus. But then on Saturday, December 11th, he's agreed, together with Mason Fire Engines, to make his way throughout the city, stopping at different locations between 9 a.m. and 12 p.m. The locations include Fire Station 51, McKeno Park, Quinn Park, Fire Station 52, Pine Hill Lakes Park, and then wrapping up around noon at the Mason Community Center. It's an opportunity for folks to give Santa a preview of how good they've been in Mason. All company. Finally, well, not finally, over the holidays, City of Mason offices will be closed on Friday, December 24th in observance of the holiday. They will be open on December 31st, but with limited services. The community center will be open all of those days throughout the holiday, but on the 24th, 25th, 31st, and 1st, there will be limited access and our reduced hours. Those are also available on the website. That's it for the manager's report, Mayor, but I would like to ask council to consider moving up 2 items on the agenda. We have an opportunity tonight to thank 2 members of council, Vice Mayor Mike Gilb and Councilmember TJ Hunterlaw. This will be their last regular meeting of council. It's an opportunity to express appreciation for the years of service and time that they have given the City of Mason. So with council's concurrence, we'd like to move Resolution 2021-25 as well as Resolution 2021-26 at this point in the agenda.
Is there such a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Any opposed? Great. All right. Item 8 on the agenda, Resolution 2021-25. Jeff?
Commending Michael Gilb for his outstanding dedication and service to the City of Mason, Ohio. Whereas Michael Gilb has given dedicated service to the City of Mason, Ohio, serving as council member from December of 2017 through November of 2019, and vice mayor from December 2019 to November 2021. Michael has attended over 70 council meetings and certified over 535 ordinances and 89 resolutions. And whereas Michael Gilb has served as chair of the Finance and Court Liaison Committee and as an active member of Employee Relations, Utilities, Community Center, Public Services, Safety, Economic Development, and Policy and Legislation Committees. And whereas Michael Gilb has served to strengthen Mason's culture of wellness through the development of McKeno Park, Common Ground Playground, and the new Mason Municipal Aquatic Center. And whereas Michael Gilb's work on the CIC helped support and promote Mason's small business community, most notably during the COVID-19 pandemic, and whereas by serving on the Economic Development Committee of Council, Michael has helped bring over 4,391 employees and over $611,300,250 in capital investment to the City of Mason. And whereas by said service, Michael Gilb has demonstrated leadership, enthusiasm, energy, and strong convictions, and his contributions and dedication to the City of Mason during his service as council member has had a profound impact on the well-being of this community. Now therefore be it unanimously resolved by the Council of the City of Mason, Ohio, Section 1, that Michael Gilb is hereby given commendation of the City of Mason Council for his outstanding and distinguished service to said city. Section 2, that the Mason Clerk of Council be and is hereby directed to certify a copy of this resolution to Michael Gilb. Section 3, that this resolution shall take effect and be enforced from and after the earliest period allowed by law.
Council, I need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
So moved. Second?
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? We need a motion to adopt, please.
So moved.
Any council discussion? Let's call the roll. Oh, wait a minute. Did I see a hand go up? I'm so sorry. Let's backtrack.
If I could share, this may be a good time
This is a good time.
to share a few thoughts. I want to say thanks for the opportunity we've had to work together over the last 4 years, and thank the community for giving me the opportunity to serve here for the last 4 years. Certainly my best regards go out to the new members of council, even our newly elected council members, Mark Hagee and Barbara Berry Spaeth. Certainly the task at hand is never easy, but always vitally important. The job here is often thankless, so let me be the first to say thank you for stepping forward to be a part of the solutions here. From my perspective, leadership is not a box on the organizational chart, but leadership demands three things: service, sacrifice, and selflessness. And leadership always has a spiritual dimension. The duty of leading carries with it the obligation of helping others to achieve all that life has for them. As I was preparing to leave the Ohio House when I served as a state representative back then, they gave me the opportunity to say a few words at the end of that term. And I reminded them that we were all term limited, and that coming to the end here is just a reminder of the short lives that we've all been granted by our Creator. I said to them then, and I say to you now, that my prayer is that each of you aspire to be bold, uncompromising, faithful, spiritual leaders that inspire people with a hunger to understand that all that life has for them and to reach beyond and achieve all that has been prepared for them. Our founding fathers said it best when they concluded with these words: "Hereunto we pledge our lives, our fortunes, our sacred honor. With renewed purpose, let us do the same." Again, thank you for the opportunity. It's been a great opportunity to serve here.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much. Any other council discussion? Thank you very much. Vice Mayor Gilb, you've served us so well. We appreciate you. Well, it's time to say all in favor. Oh, yes, I missed someone. Oh, do we go ahead and do the... Yeah, let's do the vote, and then we'll do the presentation down there. So at this point, it's all in favor and any opposed? All in favor?
Yes.
All right. I won't even ask the second question. We already asked it. Okay. All right. Let's head down and present this honor to Vice Mayor Gilb. Council, we would love to get a group photo. No. Yes. Yes, please. Place. I'm so sorry. Is your foot okay? Thank you, Lisa. Right. Next on our agenda is item 9, Resolution 2021-26. Jeff?
Thank you. Commending T.J. Hunterlaw for his outstanding dedication and service to the City of Mason, Ohio. Whereas T.J. Hunterlaw has given dedicated service to the City of Mason, Ohio, serving as council member from December of 2017 through November 2021. T.J. has attended over 70 council meetings and has certified over 535 ordinances and 89 resolutions. And whereas T.J. Hunterlaw has served as chair of the Downtown and Wellness Committees and served as an active member on the Court Liaison, Equipment, Public Works, Utilities, Utilities and Economic Development Committees, Board of Veterans Affairs, as well as served as council representative to Planning Commission and attended over 68 Planning Commission meetings. And whereas, as a member of the Board of Veterans Affairs, Councilmember Hunter Law assisted in the city's acknowledgement as a Purple Heart City, the development of the street banner and yard sign program honoring Mason's veterans, and initiated improvements to the city's Veterans Memorial. And whereas by serving on the Wellness Committee, Councilmember Hunter Law has served to strengthen Mason's culture of wellness through the development of McKeno Park Common Ground Playground and the new Mason Municipal Aquatic Center. And whereas by said service, TJ Hunter Law has demonstrated leadership, enthusiasm, energy, and strong convictions, and his contributions and dedication to the city of Mason has had a profound impact on the well-being of this community. And now therefore be it unanimously resolved by the Council of the City of Mason, Ohio, Section 1, that TJ Hunter Law is hereby given commendation of the Council of the City of Mason for his outstanding and distinguished service to said city. Section 2, that the Mason Clerk of Council be and is hereby directed to certify a copy of this resolution to TJ Hunter Law. Section 3, that this resolution shall take effect and be enforced from and after the earliest period allowed by law.
Thank you. We need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading, please.
So moved?
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? We need a motion to adopt.
So moved. Second.
All right, any council discussion? Member Honorla.
Mayor, thank you. It's been my honor to be able to represent the residents of Mason while serving on City Council. This is my hometown. I've lived through tremendous growth and all the changes that come with that. I'm proud to live here and to call this my home. By far the most important vote of my 4-year tenure was on this past October 25th when we passed the ordinance making Mason a sanctuary city for the unborn. 4 years ago, it was God who kept kicking. 4 years ago, it was God who kept kicking the doors wide open for me to run for city council. It became so clear to me that that was his will for me that I began chuckling at every new sign he showed me, even though I was doing my best Gideon impersonation. As somebody who had never been in office or run for office, I was humbled to win on my first attempt. My values of integrity and being ethical while in office were related to a lot of citizens. Stopping cronyism, backroom deals, and quid pro quos was my primary goal. But little did I know that I'd get the opportunity to sponsor and vote and pass a pro-life ordinance while serving on city council. To be able to defend the lives of the unborn by deterring abortion clinics from opening up in my hometown is by far my greatest honor. I want to express my sincere thanks to City Manager Eric Hansen and Jennifer Heff and their tremendous staff like Kurt Seiler and Michelle Blair and Lisa Awe, who helped me so much every time we had to do any type of photos. And so it's all of them. They were beyond gracious and professional and kind. I appreciated my time serving with my colleagues on council to help keep Mason great. So as I move from this chair to the one out there, my voice will not be silenced as I continue to fight for transparency and ethical behavior for all our council members, and I will continue to fight to make sure that Mason stays a sanctuary city for the unborn. May God bless you all, and may God bless this great city of Mason. Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. Any other comments from council? We sincerely thank you, TJ. We really do. Councilmember TJ Honorlaw. All right. Well, we've gotten through council discussion, so we need that motion to adopt to be adopted. So all in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? And thank you very much. That motion is adopted. Join us up front. We're going to have a few photos. I see some members of your family are here. How about we introduce them really quickly so the audience knows who we are, and we'll get a picture with you and them, and then we'll have council go last. How about that?
I see my mother came, even though I asked her not to, and I see my brother standing and my brother Gary standing in the back. There may be others, but I think that's all. I told them all to stay home, though, but that was nice of them to come.
Welcome. All right, let's get some photos.
I thought you were going to do family first.
Going to do him and then his family real quick. All right. Item 6 on our agenda, we have a guest today from John Candle Homes. I'm sorry. Jeff is going to introduce us.
Thank you, Mayor. Just by way of introduction, in council, you've already been provided some letters, some other information regarding this, so I'm not going to get into any of their presentation, but I will say this is based on a section of your codified ordinances, section 942.01. This is a section that says, and I'm going to paraphrase, but it essentially says that property outside of the city cannot tap into city sanitary sewer service without council approval. And I believe we have tonight legal counsel for both the developer and I think the property owner, current property owner. They've asked to make that presentation application to council, so at this point I would turn it over to them and allow them to make their presentation to council.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of City Council. My name is Joseph Trouth. I'm with the law firm of Keating, Meething, and Kleekamp, and with me is my partner, Sophia Holly, and also we have Matt Fellerhoff representing Tufts University. Sophia and I represent John Candle Homes, who has a contract to purchase property in Deerfield Townships and Turtle Creek Townships. There are 62 acres in Turtle Creek, and there are 83.9 acres in Deerfield, for a total of about 165 acres, which is contiguous to the city of Mason. My client has a contract on the property. Giving you a little bit of history, Dr. Codadad owned or bought the property in 1981 for future investment. In July of 1998, the City of Mason administration asked Dr. Codadad for an easement over this property for sewer. And he was not represented by legal counsel. He was assured by the City of Mason that he could tap into this sewer, which would be under his property, for which he gave the easement. By his own sworn testimony, he was not informed by the city of Mason that he would have to annex the property into the city in order to get sewer service. He was always certain that he could tap in, or that his successors could tap in, to the sewer when they developed it for residential, which it was zoned. In 2018, Dr. Cotadad donated the property to Tufts University so that they could sell the property for research in the area of neuroscience, which he was a neurologist. When John Candle Homes signed the purchase agreement for the contract, most recently, he was informed, or the representative of John Candle Homes was informed that he could not tap into the sewer on the property unless he annexed the property, and that they go through zoning, and they had to dedicate a right-of-way to the city of Mason. These conditions, in essence, constitute a taking of the property without compensation. To date, nobody has been compensated for the sewer easement, and Dr. Cotadad believed that his compensation was to be able to tap into the sewer. A reading of Dr. Cotadad's sworn statement verifies these facts and indicates what kind of agreement Dr. Cotadad had with the city of Mason to be able to tap into the sewer on his own property after giving the sewer easement to the city of Mason. We will find that, without a doubt, the position that Mason has taken on the property deprives the university, Tufts University, of the economic benefit of Dr. Cotadad's gift, along with an excerpt from Dr. Cotadad's testimony. As well, we will hear from the representative of Tufts, Matt Fellerhoff, regarding the impact of this decision on Tufts' ability to sell the property at a fair market value price and use that for future neurological research, which was Dr. Cotadad's wishes. Dr. Cotadad is now 93 years old and would like to see his wishes fulfilled. With that, I'll ask Sophia to come up and give her part of the presentation.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of council, staff, and the law director for your time and consideration tonight. Following up and getting right into it, in addition to what my partner has just testified to, we have a short clip of the testimony of Dr. Cotadad, which I believe would be helpful for council to view, and I've provided that to Ms. Ayer, and I'd like to ask that you present it now. Thank you.
Please state your name for the record.
German Cotadad.
Thank you. And may I call you Dr. Cotadad?
Please call me German.
Okay. Or doctor. Let me show you what's been marked as Exhibit C. Can you identify that particular document?
Yes, this is a map of the sewer line that the city of Mason planned to put it in.
Now, how did that come about? Were you contacted by the city of Mason?
they called my office. They made an appointment to come and see me. So, as I recall, two officials of City of Mason came there and they told me that they would like to ask me if I would allow them to run their sewer line on my property. We discussed it, and they told me that if you allow us to do that, then we'll let you connect to it when it is done.
Okay.
I thought that was a fair exchange. I said, fine. And that was basically what we discussed overall and decided to do.
Okay. Did they offer you any money for the sewer?
No.
Okay. So they said to you that if you allowed them to run the sewer over your property, you would be allowed to tap in if you ever developed the property?
Exactly.
Okay. Okay.
And if I may add, after that, when I had clients that they wanted to buy the farm, one of the things that I told them was that there is a sewer line there that you can tap to it if you want to.
I see. Okay.
And I did the same thing with Tufts University when I negotiated with them to gift the farm to them. That was one of the things in this exact room, to tell them that if you have the farm, there is a sewer land that you can use it.
So you told them that, did you give the property to them as a donation?
Yes, I gifted the property as well as this property to Tufts University for a research program. And you may be interested to know what that is, if I may say.
Sure.
It is for excessive pathological selfishness. The research is about greed. General public calls that greed.
Let's return to this exhibit, Exhibit C. Is it your understanding that you had an agreement with the City of Mason relating to this exhibit?
Yes.
And what was that agreement?
The agreement was that if I allow them to put the sewer line in, they would allow me to tap to it, to use it,
Okay,
connect to it.
okay. And when you transferred that property to Tufts University in 2018, did you tell them about that?
Absolutely,
Okay,
yes. That was one of the highlights of the gift.
so they were going to sell the property and to a developer or something?
Yes, yes, yes. As I mentioned it before, there will be a center at Tufts University. It is called Garamond Kodadot Center for Excessive Pathological Selfishness.
Okay,
There were officials from Mason who came to discuss with me. Yes.
and they came to your office?
Yes.
Where was your office at that time?
I had an office, I was on the faculty of UC, but also I had an office in Kentucky.
Okay,
It was in Barnwood Drive.
okay.
Yes, that is where they came.
So that was your Kentucky office
Yes,
for your neurological practice?
right.
Okay. And the officials from Mason came there?
Yes.
Okay. And that's when they said to you, if we can put this sewer easement on your property,
Yes,
you will have access to it.
exactly.
Were there any other terms to this agreement other than we will put the sewer on your property in exchange for you having access to it?
No other agreement.
Okay,
That was the only agreement we had.
okay. Okay. And how was the offer made? How was the offer made to you?
Orally, they just told me so.
Okay. And you accepted that offer?
I accepted, I trusted them.
Yeah, okay. How did you accept that? Orally?
When we discussed, I thought they were genuine
Okay,
and they would keep their promise,
okay,
and I felt comfortable about it.
okay. And did you ultimately convey the easement to them?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So, sitting here today, do you believe that the city of Mason has an obligation to provide sewer access to this property?
Absolutely. No question about it.
That was the entire reason for you giving them the right to do
Yes.
this?
Yes, if I give them something, they should give me something.
Right,
Don't you think?
I think so.
Yes,
But this is what you agreed to.
yes.
Okay.
Okay, that's the video. And those are all excerpts of a deposition that you have a transcript from, and the video has been provided to you as well. All right, so I know as representatives of your community that all of you care about doing what's best for the community and doing what you believe is right for the community. And so I'm standing here today to say that approving the sewer access is best for the community, it's best for Dr. Kodadad, and it's the right outcome here. So let's go through that list. First, I'll submit to you that allowing the sewer tap-in is the good thing for Dr. Kodadad. You saw his testimony. He's a lovely man who donated this property to Tufts University to benefit education, benefit students, benefit teachers. In order for his donation to be given its full value, we need sewer tap-in for the property. Without it, the property is significantly diminished in value. So to honor this generous man's wishes, approving the sewer tap-in is the right thing for the community. All right, next, let's talk briefly about Tufts University, which you will hear more on shortly. Allowing this sewer tap-in will allow this property to get a value that will support these students, support the teachers, support education, support research into greed of all things. It's the right thing for Tufts University. Okay, Mason, that's important, right? There's a specific provision permitting council to permit the tap-in, and you heard your council speak to that earlier. It's specifically provided in section 942.01 of the code that city council can approve the tap-in. This is something that is appropriate for council to approve here today. It's been contemplated in drafting the ordinances as an appropriate thing to do. Moreover, there's no cost. Allowing this tap-in will generate profits for the city from people using the sanitary sewer access, and it's already been placed on the property, so it's immediately adjacent. It makes sense from an environmental standpoint. It's easy to tap into it. And it also allows respect to the wishes of Dr. Kodadad, who you heard testimony to, that it was his understanding that this was the agreement and that this is what was provided in exchange for the sewer easement that was provided in 1998. I would say that the one group of people that's not benefited by the sewer tap-in are the attorneys on the case, because, as you know, litigators charge for their work, and our client has indicated that they want to protect their property rights, which is their right to do, and that they would like to seek litigation in the event we're unable to find a resolution here today. And in the event that we are unable to seek a resolution here, we will push forward with litigation, and that will benefit only the attorneys, which I would submit is not generally great for the community. In general, also, you can say, well, litigation is just money and you could pay for it, but there's also the emotional burden, there's the time burden. We're going to be asking your representatives, your assistants, your coworkers to pull together documents. People are going to have to go into depositions. I'm a litigator. Unfortunately, I've chosen this path, and it's just an exhausting thing to put upon people. If it can be avoided in a way that makes sense to the community, which I believe it does make sense here, there's a valid purpose to try to avoid that. And there's also a sense of fairness here and rightness for Dr. Kodadad in terms of he made this generous donation to Mason. Mason's been using this sewer easement for over 20 years now, and to allow him to tap in just seems appropriate and right. I know that we've provided a number of letters to you all that you've looked at. We've provided the deposition testimony. You've seen that too. I know you have excellent counsel here to advise you with respect to your perspectives here, but in the interest of the community, in the interest of Dr. Kodadad, in the interest of the university, we would request that you provide us the sewer tap-in that we request here today. And for the convenience of council, we've prepared a few draft ordinances. I've accidentally made 12 copies, which it looks like there's exactly enough for. I'm going to hand them in to you and ask that you just pass them down. There is a specific request for, there's several different options there. There's one for a vote with 4 people, one to dispense with the requirement for a second reading, to the extent that council finds it appropriate, which I submit it is appropriate to do so. These are provided to assist in adopting the relief that we're requesting here. And I'm now going to turn it over to counsel for Tufts, and I thank you all very much for your time and attention.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. Again, my name is Matt Fellerhoff. I'm with the law firm of Strauss-Troy in downtown Cincinnati. And I am here on behalf of 741 Holdings, LLC, who is the current property owner of the property. But 741 Holdings, LLC is an instrumentality that was created for the benefit of Tufts. When the donation was made, Tufts received this money, received this property with the expectation that it would receive the money, the proceeds of this sale, after Dr. Kodadad's gift. We are here to support this request because failure to grant this request threatens the closing, threatens the value of the property. Tufts has already lost one contract because of this issue. And for the reasons that you've already heard and the reasons that I'll explain, it's just not right and it's illegal. But I'll get into that. It's important to support this request because, one, it'll allow Dr. Kodadad's wishes to be granted. His expectations, Tufts' expectations, it will allow his research that he went to a number of universities around the country to decide where to make this gift and how to make this gift. He planned this. He relied on what was told to him, and this will allow him that gift to be fulfilled. It will also allow the City of Mason to adhere to its commitments, as the City of Mason should do that. And it will prevent Tufts University's property rights from being violated. It has a right to use its property and enjoy the benefits of the property, the benefits of the gift that was given to it. This is going to deny it, and it's going to deny it in an unconstitutional manner. You've heard about Dr. Cotadad's gift. You've seen his testimony. Tufts is relying and acting on that gift. Tufts, just as recently as this November, published an article about this gift, and if I may, I give that to the benefit of counsel. And I'm going to read briefly from the article and let you read the rest. Cotadad, who spent 30 years as a neurosurgeon, has long suspected that people with what he calls excessive pathological selfishness are born this way, for the most part. Nevertheless, he hopes to find a way to help some become altruistic. Now, with a gift to the Tufts School of Medicine valued at $10.8 million, he will launch a new research endeavor with the potential to explain at a molecular level why some people give while others only take. It goes on, it says, Cotadad made this gift in the form of 2 parcels of farmland in Kentucky and Ohio that he has owned for more than 30 years. Once the real estate is sold, some of the proceeds will go to immediate research. The rest will go towards an endowed professorships subject to the approval of the Board of Trustees and an endowed research fund. Tufts has acted on this gift and has taken steps to make this happen. But this is all based on the proceeds, the value of this property being realized. Dr. Cotadad trusted the City of Mason when he made his oral deal to give access across his property, sewer access. Mason wasn't entitled to that. Mason would have had to pay for it. It's Dr. Cotadad's property. He did it based on the understanding that Mason was given something in return. Mason isn't, if it doesn't pass grant this request, isn't giving something in return, and that's not right. Tufts hasn't been intimately involved in development. It's not involved in development, but what it wants to see is Dr. Cotadad's request granted because it will allow the research to continue. But Tufts does have a property right in this property. As I told you, it has already lost one contract because of this. It's in danger of losing another. Tufts has taken action based on this estimate of $10.8 million. That estimate is going to go down dramatically if this sale doesn't go through. The city has put additional requirements on this, on the achieving sewage in this case. It's required, it's got this new requirement of annexation. It also is requiring zone changes. We have been told that the city would like to see the zoning on the property changed. It also is requiring that any developer build a roadway across the property, not for the benefit of the developer, but for the benefit of Mason to acquire, to bring additional transportation into Mason and perhaps have industrial uses that are supplied here. And it is requiring the developer to dedicate land that would be the developer to the developers and to pay for the development of this roadway that doesn't benefit the developer. That is unconstitutional. That is an unconstitutional exaction of property. The Supreme Court has called that, in fact, blackmail. It's requiring the property owner to give up property rights that it has for free in order to get something that they would otherwise be entitled to. Dr. Cotadad, according to the agreement with the city, is entitled to sewage. The city is putting these additional requirements on it that are making this property undevelopable, and that is requiring that, well, that's causing the property to lose its value. Dr. Cotadad's gift, Tufts University The great research that Dr. Kodadad wants Tufts to do is going to be lost because Mason isn't complying with its agreement. And for that reason, Tufts University is asking the City of Mason to grant this request so the property can be developed, the agreement with Dr. Kodadad can be complied with, and that Dr. Kodadad's wishes and his research can actually happen. Mason is a great city. It is well known for its integrity. Mason is better than this. Tufts asked that Mason comply with the agreement and grant this request. Thank you very much. I'll turn this back over to Ms. Hawley. Thank you.
If anyone had any questions, I wanted to give the opportunity for you to ask them. But hearing none, thank you so much for your time and your consideration, and we once again submit that you approve the request here. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a lot to absorb. Thank you for a thorough presentation. Law Director, under what circumstances can we discuss this or these ordinances that have been offered to us? I haven't had a chance to look over them, but
Well,
what do you recommend?
so at this point, Mayor, you've been presented with some different versions of possible legislation for council to consider. None, that's not on your agenda tonight. So, I mean, council always has the authority with a majority vote to add a piece of legislation to its agenda. So if that's what council would like to do, you, by motion, you can add a piece of legislation to the agenda tonight. That's the only way that you would get to a council discussion point of considering an ordinance, is if it's actually been added to your agenda. So that may be the first sort of threshold question for council is, do you want to add a piece of legislation to your agenda tonight? I will say this before you make that decision. This afternoon, this was the first that I've seen some of the documents, the letter that you received this afternoon, that this is the first time I've seen some of the legal arguments that are being made. It's the first time we've had any legal argument made by Tufts University. I obviously have not had a chance to review those, research those, discuss those with them. So I can't, and I cannot speak to any of the arguments they made tonight. Even if I could, I guess I would tell council I would not in this venue, given that what you've heard tonight is they're going to sue you. What they said in their letter that they sent at 3:30 was, if you don't give us what we want, we will sue you. So I'm not going to speak to the merits of any of this tonight. But as I said, council, by your own, forget about all of that, by your own ordinance, your own code, you have the authority to address this, but you'd have to add it to your agenda first.
Mayor, I just was wondering, would it be possible we discuss this in executive session now? Could we put this on the agenda to go discuss this right now today rather than out here in public?
All I can say to that is the discussion of pending or imminent court action is an appropriate reason to adjourn into executive session.
Mayor, I'll make that motion.
Mayor?
He just made the motion. Is there a second to the motion? Then we can discuss the motion. No second? Okay. Member Chance?
Yeah, I think we just heard loud and clear that our attorney has not had the ability to look through this stuff and be able to render a good professional opinion on our behalf. So why we would even discuss that tonight and just getting this information today and asking us to pass an ordinance that our law director didn't look at, I mean, I just don't even see why we should even discuss it tonight as well.
Mayor? Yes. Can I make a motion to table this until our attorney has reviewed all the documents?
I guess what I would say is there's nothing before council to table right now.
Yeah.
You would have to, you've been presented with proposed ordinances. If you want to add them to the agenda for consideration or add one of them to the agenda, you can do that. And then there would be something on the agenda for your consideration, and then you could take whatever action you felt was appropriate, which would include tabling. But right now, there is no legislation on your agenda for your consideration.
Could we be given a summary of each ordinance, just to, I'm trying to
Well,
read and listen and
again,
process all at the same time.
I can try. I mean, they're actually fairly, the legislation is fairly simple. I got it this afternoon. It's 3 different versions. Essentially one, well, they all do the same thing. They all approve the sewer tap that's being requested. One does it as a regular ordinance. One does it as an emergency, which would take effect immediately. The other, and there's really no need to have this version, but there is a version that calls out that council wants to dispense with the second reading and allow for adoption after the first reading. That doesn't have to actually be spelled out in the ordinance. We do that by motion, but that's it. That's essentially it. They're just 3 different versions with different effective dates, essentially, but they all do the same thing. They all would approve the sewer tap in as requested. I guess I don't want to speak for them, but that's, as I read them this afternoon, that's.
Yes, you may.
And I apologize, I certainly was not meaning to throw things at your council. So there are 3 ordinances. 2 of them were provided to Ms. R. I believe it was last week before Thanksgiving. Those were the ones, one version just says 4 people approve. So under your codified ordinances, as Mr. Forbes know, that means that it would not become effective until the second reading. The second version, which was provided today for the first time and which was unnecessary, and if it would be helpful, you could just throw it in the trash, says that there's 5 votes, which would mean that the second reading is not necessary. And then the final version of the ordinance, which was provided last week, says that 7 council members approve it as an emergency ordinance. So they all request the same relief, which is that sewer tap-in is approved, as we previously discussed. And sort of to follow up, I mean, shucks, if we have to go to litigation on this, it's a tough position. We're not trying to be disrespectful. Everyone has a right to their property and to defend their property. I like to say that I want to be free to be outside in my backyard in my pajamas, and my husband says he wants to be free to be in our backyard in my pajamas. It's his right, it's his property. So we are defending our property rights here. There's an option for council to approve this. It avoids litigation. We don't have to go in any of the legal analysis. There is just simply a right, period, in the ordinance for you to approve tap-in. Looking past the legal arguments, which I frankly don't even want to get into, we don't even need to get into. If you think it's appropriate, based upon the testimony you heard, based upon what Dr. Kodadad testified to, I mean, certainly there's been a benefit to the city of Mason of this lovely man who is 93 years old, which is just incredible that he's still living. He wants to see his gift benefit Tufts University. He wants to have this center built in his name. How cool would it be for him to see that constructed? Wouldn't it be much better for him to see that constructed instead of this going on and us litigating it? And again, I say this as a litigator, it's an exhausting field, but just based upon the facts here, you have the capacity to approve the sewer tap-in. It's specifically in the ordinance. It's specifically been anticipated as something that's appropriate. I think of the facts, these strange facts, which I don't think will ever come up again. I mean, it seems unlikely that a 93-year-old man who was a neurosurgeon, whose life commitment was investigating greed, made a donation to a university for a construction of a center, and the only thing that's stopping the development is he needs sewer. It would be, I think, appropriate to do. It would be good for Mason. I'm not going to repeat myself. Just to say, we don't need to get to litigation. If you think this is the appropriate and right thing to do, then I would request that you make a motion to consider one of the ordinances, and you can look past the one that was never provided before today. Look at the one for 4 the first one that's being provided, the first one in your stack, that was provided last week. If 4 of you have the capacity to, or you believe it's appropriate, we would request that you do so. Thank you.
I would not, since they've said to you.
So Mayor, if I can just get clarification. So this is my last meeting here. So we're making a decision today either to believe that the seller allowed the property, the sewer line to go across the property for free, or we're going to spend money going to court. That's going to get decided right here, right now. Whether we either pass it or if we don't pass it, we automatically are going to spend money going to court. I'd like to know our record on going to court over things like this, because this doesn't look good in my mind.
I don't know how to answer that, and I'm certainly not going to answer it given that they've just said they're going to sue you, and this is not the appropriate venue for me to give legal advice to my client when they've just said they're going to sue you.
So we're still making a decision right now?
There's nothing before council to decide. First thing you have to do is decide if you want to add a piece of legislation to your agenda tonight. Or I should say this, or by, you can add a piece of legislation tonight. You can direct the law director to prepare another piece of legislation for another meeting. There are options.
Anyone? Yes.
Respectfully, I would say that there is something before council. There is specifically a request for an application to tap into the sewer, and it's specifically provided in the ordinances. So there is something for consideration. This was put on the agenda prior to Thanksgiving. This isn't something that is a new thing. This is relating to an agreement for sewer that's been provided for over 20 years now. So there is something. City Council can approve the request to tap in that was made by John Candle Homes LLC.
Mayor, I make a motion we continue with our regularly published agenda.
I'll second that.
Okay, what is number 6? Okay, service request. Okay, so
There was a motion and a second, but
asking a procedural question.
sure.
Thanks.
Right, and now let me answer this. I'll just answer this part out loud. Correct, there's a discussion item on your agenda tonight for John Candle Homes LLC sewer service request. There's no legislation on your agenda. Any council member leading up to a meeting can always request that legislation be placed on the agenda. The public does not request that legislation be placed on the agenda. They can provide that to council, and then council can suggest that we place that on the agenda. That was not done. There's no one from council has asked us to place anything on the legislation on the agenda tonight. Your council rules also provide another avenue that if you're in a meeting and you want to add something to the agenda, you have the ability to do that. So if you want to add an ordinance to your agenda tonight, you have the ability to do that. So I just wanted to clarify that. But Mayor, you have a motion and a second on the floor.
We have a motion and a second to get back to the regular agenda, correct? Sorry, to get back to the regular agenda. So all in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Do we need to do a roll call?
I didn't hear any opposed, but you can do a roll call if you're.
Let's
do a
go ahead and do a
let's
roll call.
Councilmember Chance?
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn?
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb?
Yes.
Councilmember Hunterlaw?
Yes.
Mayor Grossman?
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. we will, I'm sure, all be thinking about this very carefully. I know I will, and thank you for this very thorough presentation. All right, so item 7 on the agenda is recognition of visitors. Do we have a sign-in sheet today?
Yes, we do, Mayor. We have several visitors that would have requested to speak. We're going to start off, remind everybody that there is a 5-minute time allotment by council rules. So first up is Alan Lertzman. Next is Don Eberhard. And the next gentleman is Jim Whityaker. And I apologize, sometimes the writing is very difficult to read, so if I've messed up that pronunciation, my apologies.
Okay, I wasn't planning to speak tonight, but then a news article caught my attention. I'll get to that in a second. First, I want to say, Mr. Gilb, the comments you made earlier were obviously heartfelt and very appropriate, and I applaud them. Don't always agree with everything you've done on council, but thank you. On the other hand, Mr. Honor, your comments, I think, were very inappropriate for the occasion. I will pick up from what you said, however. Perhaps you took, and I don't know your God, I don't talk to God personally. You said that you took it as God's talking to you, and that's why you won your first election. Perhaps God wasn't happy with what you've done since then, given that you came in dead last out of 8 candidates in the last election, getting less than a quarter of the votes of the top vote getters. Perhaps you need to have another conversation with him. The article that caught my attention, there's been a lot of reporting on the petitions to repeal the Sanctuary City Ordinance. One article in particular caught my eye. In it, Ms. Grossman, you were quoted as saying that you were happy that the residents of the city of Mason would get to vote on this issue. You may not have used the word happy, maybe glad, I'm not positive.
I'm not familiar with that article.
Yeah.
Can you tell me which one you're talking
I don't
about?
have the reference with me, but I can get it for you.
Okay.
Given that when the ordinance first came up, you attempted to get it passed as an emergency, which would prevent any citizen from having a vote. That says you didn't particularly want the citizens to have a voice. When it came up the second time, for the second reading, there was a motion to put it on the ballot. And you talked at great length about why you did not want that to happen. That certainly says you didn't want the citizens to have a vote.
Well, that's not exactly true.
You're interrupting me, Ms. Grossman.
I was assuming you wanted some responses. Pardon me.
Not at this moment, I don't. In light of your plan to run for state rep next year, I think the City of Mason's residents need to be aware of the degree of your hypocrisy. Multiple times, as I just indicated, you opposed letting the residents have a say. And that right out there is hypocrisy, period. Let me say that I wish all members of council, picking up on what the rabbi said, peace, happiness, health. But for you, Ms. Grossman, and you, Mr. Honor, I wish a future full of failure at electoral runs. Thank you.
Okay. I'd like to address Mr. Lertzman's comments about me not wanting the public to have a voice. That is flat false.
We can go back to the tapes.
It is flat false. You can go back to the tapes because normally the way the procedure goes is we address an ordinance here, and the public has every right to circulate petitions for a referendum if they're unhappy with the outcome, but we are elected as the representatives to vote on legislative matters. That's our role. I wanted to fulfill my duty to do that. Sir, you are wrong that I would ever want to take away the voice of the public. And I certainly thought in that situation, the reason part of the reason I supported that legislation, which I understand you're very unhappy about, is for those who don't have a voice and who never get a voice, and that's the unborn. I would appreciate it, sir.
The ordinance could have been brought up.
I would appreciate it, sir, if you tell the truth to the public and that you are respectful of people with viewpoints other than your own.
The ordinance
And that
could
you
have
would
been
listen
brought
to
up.
the voices of the people representing the electorate who elected us. We do our job, and you engaged for months on end, meeting after meeting after meeting. We listened, we made modifications and adaptations to the legislation. It still passed, and now you and some of those who oppose the legislation have rightfully and lawfully circulated petitions and turned them into the city. They are yet to be certified. If they are, then that has the opportunity to go on the ballot, and that's the democratic process, and I am happy that we are following the democratic process. But I'm not happy about being falsely accused, attacked for my faith. You should never attack anyone for your faith.
I did not attack you for your faith.
You just did.
I did
You
not.
attacked both of us.
I did not.
Sir, now I
Simply
we have
picked
the
up on his
correct.
comment regarding that he has a specific comment. I did not attack his faith. I simply responded to his comment.
His comments
The
were
ordinance could have
faith-based.
been presented in the first place, not as an emergency, which, if it had gotten 4 or 5 votes regardless, would still have been open to the
Well,
public.
Mr. Lertzman, I'm afraid you're just wrong.
Well,
All right.
we'll see what happens in the next elections.
That's okay. That's what the democratic process is all about, Mr. Lertzman.
Mayor, I just
Yes.
wanted to say I was quoted in, I think it was a Fox 19 article, so I think he has us confused. I was the one that had made that statement.
All right, next on the agenda, please.
Mr. Don Eberhard?
Thank you. Welcome, Mr. Eberhard.
Oh, we did? Okay. Mr. Whitaker? Oh, that's fine.
You'll have to go up to the podium. Have we gotten through everybody on the list?
No, we have not.
Is it okay if we get through the list and then I'll, thank you so much.
Okay. Donna Chillicux? Did I pronounce that wrong? Okay, how about Laura? Oh, sorry.
I have a display at some time, so.
At some time, are you ready for it now?
Whoops. Well, I'd like to get it set up so then I can, so it's just an easy transition. I'm Donna Chilcote. I live at 4577 Place Point Drive. I wanted to speak a couple weeks ago when you initially were going to vote for the emergency ordinance, but I gave up my seat to a father of 3 daughters who felt it very, very important that he speak for his 3 daughters concerning the ordinance. So, and then the second time, I don't know, there were bus loads from Williamsburg, Kentucky, your salesmen from East Texas, and all the other people outside of Mason. I am a resident. I am very, very angry that I have to even be here tonight. I'd like to start off with my story. I grew up in Green Hills by a single mother. My father was an alcoholic. He left his wife. I think I was in 2nd grade. I had, my grandparents were very instrumental in my life. My mother worked 2 jobs until she was able to go back and get her education by the gift of my grandparents. And we were on welfare for several times. The mayor brought us Christmas several times. And I knew when I was young that I would never, ever have to depend on anyone. And I knew that I was going to get a college education because I saw what it did for my mother when she got a college education. And at 15, I was at a high school party, and I was sexually violated by the star football player who dated a cheerleader all the way through high school. I would call it, I was raped. And I knew once I found out I was not going to have that child. I would take my life before I would be forced to have that man's child. My mother and I had him and his father come over and hoping that they would help us financially. He denied it. His father threatened to sue my mom for slander. And thankfully, my mom took me to Planned Parenthood. And yes, I had an abortion. I am grateful every day that I had a safe, legal place to have an abortion. Well, let's back up. Let's say we were Mason residents. Here's a mother of 3 kids. What are you gonna fine her the amount of money? You are not here to legislate state and federal laws. That's not your business. And if that's what you believe in, then go promote it someplace else. But to say that the residents here are mostly Republican, even though this is a bipartisan group, right? And I apologize for going off my script, but I'm just dumbfounded. I am so looking forward to the new members that are coming up. And if the election results don't tell you something, then, that's your issue. Because I wonder where you would have found the election results. Do you think you would have placed up there? I doubt it. I think you would have been right down there with him. Okay, this right here, I wish I had time to share the many stories that I had from residents. Most, I would say a high percentage were Republicans that went out of their way to come and sign that petition. One is a retired chef. She does art on the side. Imagine Mason is the title of her work. More than you can imagine, just like the logo, more than you can imagine. I had a conversation with 2 researchers that worked with different universities all over the world that just moved here. And this lady said, I'm here for 6 months. And I read about this, and I'm thinking, oh my God, where did I move to? I wish I had time, and I will write the stories up and share them with you at some time. But not to get off here. Yeah, let's imagine Mason. Here we have the blades of grass that represent the residents. No, they don't represent East Texas, Williamsburg, Kentucky, or Lebanon. These are Mason residents. The Mason Patrol. Yeah, my mom would be right in there, handcuffed.
Mrs. Chillicote, I'm sorry, you've come to the end of your 5-minute allotment. Please allow time for the next.
I think I said what and quite frankly, I didn't even know who the council members were before this. But I know who you are now, and a lot of people do.
Next up is Laura Stretman.
Thank you. When I signed in, I thought I was signing to attend the meeting, not to speak. But because of some of the things that have been said this evening, I felt that the voiceless needed a voice. I live at 2324 Park Avenue in Cincinnati, Ohio. I am executive director of Cincinnati Right to Life. I've been defending the unborn, my first March for Life, when I could not read or write when I was 4 years old. And my parents raised me to respect the unborn 24/7, and where you live, where you worship, where you work. There are no exceptions. If you're pro-life, you need to be pro-life in all avenues. And I also would like to say my deepest heartfelt sympathy for anyone in this room that's lost a child by an abortion. My heart aches for you. I worked on the front line of the pro-life movement in a pregnancy center for 10 years, and I helped hundreds upon hundreds of women as they were making a decision for their life of their unborn child. I'm particularly sorry for the women that were assaulted. My heart grieves for you, honestly. I helped the women in your situation, and I hugged them and held them while they wept in their pain that they were in that position. I also have friends that chose life in that position and made adoption plans. And part of what has been amazing to me attending these meetings is the discussion whether abortion is right or wrong, and the anger and the hurt and the pain, when really this boils down to the fact we've witnessed what abortion does to people. Tonight, the sorrow is deep, and I am sorry, truly. And what Mason has tried to do, this is a land use ordinance. You are saying you don't want that pain in your city. And it is going to go to a vote, and the voters in your beautiful, beautiful city will have a voice. But this isn't about the federal law, or the state law. This has been about your city keeping the killing of the unborn out of your city. I have friends that witness at the Aurora, Illinois abortion clinic where Planned Parenthood snuck in one of their mega centers under a different corporate name. That gorgeous town of Aurora, which is actually a suburb of Chicago and very similar to Mason, an affluent, moving in the right direction, growing suburban hamlet. It has completely changed the dynamic of that city. And I'm sorry this became so political in your beautiful town, but it truly is a human rights issue. And anyone that did not support this is saying that you're okay with women coming into your town and the possibility of an abortion clinic coming here. And again, the first time I shared my witness, I shared about attending the funeral of the unborn baby in Akron. It was my first act in September as the executive director of Cincinnati Right to Life. And 250 people wept over this baby that was shredded and found in a garbage bag at the curb. And the baby was at least 17 weeks old at this abortion clinic in a neighborhood. So I just am here to speak on behalf of all the children. In Hamilton County, there were 3,200 abortions in 2020 during a global pandemic. More unborn babies died in Ohio in 2020 than people died of COVID. Chemical abortions doubled on Auburn Avenue across from Christ Hospital. Emergency room visits from the chemical abortion are up 500%. 35 out of 100 women that take the chemical abortion
Quiet, please.
go to an emergency room. The abortion is incomplete. I've also seen partial babies left inside women's wombs in ultrasounds at the pregnancy center. We've had to call 911 because of a possible infection she could have coded. The abortion clinic wouldn't see her. So what makes me so sad is that your city council was not strong enough to have this go right into effect in an emergency council, and I'm sorry for that. And I hope that this does go to the referendum and Mason can remain the gorgeous hamlet, the really important suburb of Cincinnati that it is. And I thank you all for your service as elected officials. And I just ask for you to really think deeply about this. And I'm sorry that you are not giving me the same manners that I've given you when you all spoke. And it just is so obvious, the anger and the difference
Mrs.
between the
Stretz,
sides of this.
You've come to the end of your 5-minute allotment.
Thank you.
Please.
Thank you, Mrs. Street.
Next up is Mr. Joe Trout.
I'd like to remind the audience that everyone has the right to share at the podium. Please be respectful of others.
Mr. Trout, did you wish to speak again?
Welcome back, Sophia.
Thank you. And just for clarity's sake, there was previously a motion made to go into executive session that did not carry forward. However, I would like to specifically request, because I would like council to consider a motion to add the item, the ordinance that we presented to the agenda tonight, and alternatively to add it to the next meeting, please. I'd like to make that specific request.
Next up would be Matt.
Okay. Is there a motion to add discussion of, to add those? Well, I don't know which one you want us to add. The first one. Okay. I'm not sure which that is.
It's the one that requires 4 votes of council.
You can just ask if there's a motion to add.
Okay.
Sorry, I guess the question then is there a motion to add a piece of legislation to your agenda to authorize the tap-in permit as requested?
At the December meeting.
Well, I think their immediate request is to add it tonight.
Okay.
If not, their alternative, I don't want to speak for you. The alternative request is to have it on the December.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, is there a motion to add it tonight from anyone on council? Okay, is there a motion to add it to the December 13th meeting agenda?
I guess I'd call for a point of order on that. I don't know that we have the ability I think this is the last council meeting for this council, and I don't know that we have the ability to set the agenda for a future council, so I would certainly urge caution or ask the applicant maybe to come back to council as it's going to be newly constituted here next month. This is our final meeting. If you want, I certainly would encourage you not to file a suit against the city, but to give the new council an opportunity to address your concerns. But I don't think it's appropriate for us to set that agenda for the new council.
Do you want, I can respond. I mean, I'll respond to that. While I appreciate the sentiment, all 7 of you up here right now are sitting council members. You have the authority to take any action as sitting council members. I certainly understand. I hear where you're coming from, but you do have the authority to do it.
Member Honorlaw?
Mayor, so we've already heard from the last council meeting that was a question asked about repealing ordinances that were already passed, about the downtown ordinance, even though it was going to referendum. I think Councilmember Nelson has.
Is this related to this?
Well, but so even if we were to pass something here, the next council could just repeal it, right? So I mean, would they be able to repeal something if it were to? So I mean, there's really no need to do anything. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, audience.
Jen?
We're really trying to hear and help solve problems. So if you could just be respectful and stop mocking the council. We're asking legitimate questions and trying to understand.
I mean, I think that answer is the same as anything. Yes, if any council passes an ordinance, any future council, whether that's at the next meeting or the next year, can repeal ordinances.
But we're not asking for passage, we're just asking for it to be added to the agenda so it may be considered, which I believe one council member may do. So it just requires 1 vote to be added to the agenda.
In the middle of the meeting, it requires a majority vote.
I see.
But any council member has the authority to add it to the agenda for the next meeting.
I see.
Okay.
Right, that's correct.
Okay.
Mayor,
Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we have our law director review all this information before there is any vote taken.
Yeah, I'll second that. I think that's what I said earlier, too. I think that's a prudent thing for us to do.
Yeah, sure.
Any council discussion on that motion? Let's call the roll.
Councilmember Bradburn,
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb,
Yes.
Councilmember Hunterlaw,
Yes.
Mayor Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Chance.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, is it,
Yes.
yes, is it appropriate at this time with regard to her request to motion that we add executive session on this topic to the agenda for the December 13th meeting?
I don't know that you need a motion.
We don't need a motion to do that, but maybe just plan on it so we
Yeah,
can get
typical to our
updates.
agendas, if, based on the review, it's felt appropriate and fitting, we could add an executive session, and will if it's.
I would appreciate that. It's to have an in-person discussion with our law director. That would be great. Thank you. Okay, we have a new guest.
Matthew, I'm going to guess it's Fellerbot? Okay, sorry.
Thank you.
Okay, Esther Grubbs?
Thank you. Welcome. Please state your name and address.
I'm Esther Grubbs. I live at 6422 Turnberry Court in Mason. I just have a couple of observations. One, as I was driving around today, I noticed the absence of political signs. I don't know how they came out, but thank you. I hope it was done by the candidates themselves, and it's nice to see that. I would request of everyone, again, please use your microphones. It is very difficult to hear when you turn your head like this or you turn like this and we can't hear you. And we want to. Thirdly, could you please, when you get to it, explain number 12 and number 13 on the agenda? What is 12 and why do we need 13 when you get to that place? And then one last thing. Vice Mayor Gilb, you said in your comments that you hope that the council members would be uncompromising. That's what has gotten us into this problem in our whole country. People not compromising. And I hope that's not what you meant. I don't know, but we do need compromise. Thank you.
And finally, we have Julie Smith.
Thank you, Mrs. Grubbs. It was nice to meet you.
Good evening. It's kind of hard to talk in the microphone all the time, by the way. Sometimes you do turn your head. I noticed everybody has done that. Thank you to everybody that's up here, past, present, future. I've been a Mason resident since 1995. I've been here twice. Once was about a month ago. I wish I'd joined in sooner, or maybe I wish I'd never come at all. This is really disturbing. To walk into a room with all adults. Some are very respectful, some are not. And it really hurts me. It makes me really sad when I look out and I see adults that don't give consideration to other adults who are trying to speak and are addressing issues that are important to all of us. That was not on my agenda, but man, it's on my heart. And we need to carry that from this room out into the country, out into the city, out into just beyond here. I'm tired of this. I did some alliteration in my notes today. I hadn't really planned on coming, but I couldn't miss it. I'm saying thank you to a dear friend of mine. I'll save that for the end. My alliteration for the night is, we have enough. Oh, my name is Julie Smith, and I've lived in Mason for, like I said, since 1995. I've had 3 separate residencies, and just found out earlier this evening that I'll be changing my address in a couple of weeks. Dysfunction.
What's your address for now?
Oh, 5219 Mason Grand Drive, Mason,
thank you.
Ohio. Yeah,
Thank
sorry. My alliteration for the night, and we've had enough of all of this. It's the dysfunction, disrespect, division, disagreements, and distrust. Man, I want to say goodbye to this. I hope as we say goodbye to 2021, we can say goodbye to some of those words. I'd like to change those words. Now, I do not have alliteration here. I'd like to learn to function together, to unite. I'd like to learn to agree. Here's a word. I would like to learn to make compromise. That doesn't mean to compromise our values. We need to hold to our values. That's separate from compromise. We need to give one another a reason to trust one another. I thanked you already. Those of you who have served, are continuing to serve, and are yet coming up to serve. Thank you for all that. This is a nightmare. I can't imagine having to deal with this from week to week and month, day to day. Now, one of the reasons I came here tonight was to share a very heartfelt thank you to Mayor Grossman. Those of you who cannot use these adjectives when you describe this dear woman, I've known her since she was 16 years old, and she's only grown in all of these qualities. They were in her at the time. When she was 16, they're still there. And if you don't use these words, then you don't know Kathy Grossman. She's talented. She's smart. She's very loving. Even those people who aren't loving her back, she loves you. She's very strong. She's very faithful. She's very honest. She's trustworthy. She's loyal. She's selfless. She's dedicated. She's hardworking. She's a dedicated Christ follower. She's a friend extraordinaire, one that I would trust with my life, and in fact, I have. She's beautiful on the inside and on the outside. Kathy, thank you. I just apologize for the garbage that you've had to deal with over these years. Did I hear time called? No, okay. One last adjective, and this is kind of an odd one to attach to her, but the thing is I attach it to everyone in this room and every human being that has ever walked on this earth, except for one. We're celebrating his birthday coming up, by the way. She's imperfect, but so are we. We can't hold perfection as a standard for any of us. But that list I gave is true and it's accurate. And if you don't know that about Kathy, like I said, you don't know Kathy. Okay? And I could go on and on about this ordinance, about making this a sanctuary city. Thank you. Thank you for your support of the unborn, for your love for the unborn. I appreciate that from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate all of you, even those of you who might be disagreeing with me right now on the council. I'm not even sure who's who anymore, but thank you. I appreciate you, and I know that you want to serve this city well.
Mrs. Smith, I'm sorry.
That's fine. I appreciate it. And once again, thank you all, and God bless all of us. We need his blessing.
Thank you, Julie. I wasn't expecting that. Thank you. Okay, was there anybody else who wished to be recognized that didn't sign in? Come on up, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Tricia Hilton Mills. I live at 535 Shawnee Lane, and I had the honor of being part of bringing forth a referendum to allow citizens vote on the Sanctuary City Bill. I just wanted to point out that in 2020, there were 20,605 abortions performed in Ohio. Of those, 17,942 were under 12 weeks. Of those people, many were married, but the largest group of individuals seeking to induce abortion were 25 to 55 years of age. I'm 48 years old. I have 2 children. Being in a position to not need an abortion is being in a position of privilege. And I think it's something that many folks on our city council don't understand. That's my statement on that. I believe that there are state and federal laws that legislate this very clearly. And currently, in the Ohio State House, there are multiple bills being put forth and spoken upon about these things. We do not need our city council to be causing division within our community based on a religious discussion that has nothing to do with a city council. Our great nation is based very strongly on the separation of church and state to protect individuals' rights to practice their religion or lack thereof, not to keep people from being religious and not to keep people from enjoying their Saturdays or Sundays or late nights, worshiping whatever or whomever they would like to worship. Separation of church and state is here to protect individuals from small town city councils choosing to legislate their privileged perspective on religion, on people's bodies. There are several bills in the State House right now that would force women who have terminal conditions for their unborn to not be able to choose a hospice-related situation when their terminally diagnosed infant is born. It will require that infant to be taken from the room, taken to a neonatal intensive care unit, intubated in an attempt to be saved. These are babies who are born without brains, or babies whose kidneys don't function, or babies whose lungs will not be able to breathe properly, but we are going to stick a tube down their throat. And those final hours that people could be spending holding their children, who they've chosen not to abort because they just wanted to see that baby and they love that baby and that was their choice. And we have bills in the Ohio state that are causing just as much division as we have right here. But that's where these things end up. That's where legislating your religious point of view ends up. It ends up with a mom and a dad sitting in a delivery room without a dying infant in their arms, and that child experiencing its only moments of life uncomfortable, with people trying to save it futilely. And it's unfair, and it's because we have people who are not medical professionals trying to legislate healthcare. I respect your choice to your religion, but it needs to stop being legislated in Mason. We need to stop forcing religious perspective on our citizens who are highly diverse. We have so many different viewpoints here in Mason. Mason's like its own little small world ride. I don't know if you've gone to any of the school events. My kids know kids from everywhere, and now they're Mason citizens. And they all have different points of view, and they all deserve to have those points of view in America. I don't know how old you guys are, but I grew up to Schoolhouse Rock. And I remember those people coming on the little boat and everybody jumping into the melting pot. Every one of those people that made the melting pot of America had a different opinion, and they came here to be free to have that opinion. And I understand that it breaks some people's hearts, but that has to stop at the body of the next person. It's just America. It's just what we are. And if we start legislating that in small towns, we are just taking bites out of our Constitution.
Mrs. Hilton Mills, you've come to the end of your 5 minutes.
Thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of the referendum.
Anyone else? Yes, sir, in the back.
My name's Chris Lazuda. I live at 6658 Palmetto Drive in Mason, Ohio. After serving 5 years as an active duty Army officer, part of that time overseas as a tank platoon leader and company executive officer, my wife and I chose Mason as a place to live. We have 2 daughters who are in Mason City schools. This city is our home now. I've lived and worked here since 2007. I've never spoken to council before, but I've seen many who have. All the speakers from Mason seem to care deeply about this community, and so do I. With the election over, I'd ask council to take a page from Mason's school board and moving forward be able to disagree without being disagreeable. What I mean by this is that disagreements are topic driven. Being disagreeable is personality driven. It's feelings driven. I'd like our council to reflect on their actions related to how they led their electorate over their time on council recently. The best leaders I've been privileged to follow as an Army officer and in my business career share a common trait. They all led in a way that empowered those that followed them. They put the interests of those whom they led first and their own self-interest last. There's been too much politics ahead of the people of Mason. An example of this is when 4 council members voted in favor of the Sanctuary City Ordinance instead of making this a ballot issue for the people of Mason to decide. The timing of this ordinance being voted on by council right before an election came across to me as less about attempting to save unborn babies' lives and more about attempting to save some council members' political lives. Another example of putting politics ahead of people is deciding on one developer for downtown instead of giving the people and the city opportunity for diversity of competing ideas on how to end up with the best outcome for Mason residents. Set aside the valid debates on the financials of this decision. How can council confidently select a developer when that developer hasn't brought a final plan to council of what he's building? Isn't this comparable to when Nancy Pelosi said we must pass this bill to find out what's in it? Council members publicly accused of being tax cheats, others being anonymously accused of ethics violations, everyone racing to justify how Republican they are for a non-party affiliated position. And by the way, in 2017, the Warren County GOP listed Ashley Chance, Diana Nelson, and Josh Stricula as being Republican candidates. It's still on the Warren County GOP website in the news archives. This is a printout. In 2021, Ashley and Diana's names were not mentioned at all by the Warren County GOP. So what changed in 4 years? I believe it to be political activism that intended to fool voters. TJ Honorlaw is the vice chair of the Warren County GOP Central Committee, and Tom Grossman, the mayor's husband, is a member of the Warren County GOP Leadership Council. Do not be fooled if the Warren County GOP begins to put their thumb on the scale in future Mason City Council nonpartisan elections. Claims were made that some council members weren't Republicans, and those claims were untrue. It also conveys an ugly and divisive message that liberal Masonites are somehow lesser than Mason Republicans, and they're not. And it tortures me to hear the anger that sometimes comes from this podium. Remember, friends, let's disagree but not be disagreeable. My assessment of the past year or so of Mason politics is this. Specific members of council have made decisions for this city that were exclusive and not inclusive for Mason residents. This exclusive mentality, however, appears to have united Mason voters from both the political left and right. As a person who voted for Donald Trump twice and has voted Republican my entire life, I supported Republican candidates in this recent council election. I supported the Republican candidates who attended debates and sought to include voters on issues. I did not support the candidates who mostly skipped debates and held invitation-only meet and greets. I did not support candidates who essentially ran a Joe Biden strategy and hid in the basement until the election. And the amazing irony is that these Joe Biden strategy candidates were strongly in support of a transparency charter amendment. I disagree with Mr. Honorlaw that this election turned Mason blue. No. Mason voters across the vast political spectrum were pushed away. They were excluded.
Mr. Bizzuto, you've reached the end of your 5-minute allotment time. Please allow time for the next guest.
Thank you.
Thank you. Last call. Anyone else? All right. Let's move on. Let's do one more item, and then we'll take a 5-minute break because I know we have someone waiting for item 10, Ordinance 2021-121. Sorry we kept you waiting so long. All right, we need a motion to read that by title only, please.
So moved.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed?
Approval of the replat for lots 22 and 23 in the Elkwood subdivision.
Kurt.
Yep, Jennifer, if you could. This is essentially a replat that is taking a property, here it is, taking a property line between two parcels, and both property owners have agreed to transfer some of the property from one lot to the other. Both properties are zoned R2, which requires a minimum lot area of 20,000 square feet, and both would remain compliant with the zoning code after this replat. It went to the Planning Commission November meeting, and Ordinance 2021-121 is recommended for adoption. I'll answer any questions that you have.
Thank you. We need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? A motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Any council discussion on this one? Okay. Well, let's call the roll.
Councilmember Stricula?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb?
Yes.
Councilmember Hunterlaw?
Yes.
Mayor Grossman?
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson?
Yes.
Councilmember Chance?
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn?
Yes.
All right. That went great. Thank you for being so patient. Glad you came. All right, let's take 5 minutes, and then we will come back and start at number 11. Thank you. Audience, we need to reconvene. We're ready for item 11 on the agenda, I think. Yeah. All right, ordinance 2021-122. I need a motion to read by title only, please.
So moved.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed?
Approval of the final plat for Mason Research and Development Park.
Kurt?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. This is just a normal final plat. However, this one's a little more exciting because the city of Mason is the property owner for part of the property. We currently own Lot 2 as well as some of the right-of-way to be dedicated. And Lot 1 is owned by Vega Americas, which is a project that's under construction right now. This plat will also dedicate right-of-way on State Route 741 for the new roundabout that's also under construction. And the new roadway will be called Mason Research Parkway, and this will be extended. The plan is to extend this further to the east over to US 42 someday across the railroad tracks. So with that, this final plat is recommended for adoption. It did go to Planning Commission at the November 9th meeting as well. Ordinance 2021-122 is recommended for adoption. I'll answer any questions that you might have.
We need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
So moved.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? We need a motion to adopt.
So moved. Second.
Any council discussion on this one? Let's call the roll.
Vice Mayor Gilb,
Yes.
Councilmember Hunterlaw,
Yes.
Mayor Grossman,
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn,
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula.
Oh, we haven't made it back yet. All right. Item 12 on the agenda, ordinance 2021-123. We need a motion to read by title only, please.
So moved.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed?
An ordinance authorizing the reappropriation and transfer of monies and transferring other funds and appropriations for the current expenses of the City of Mason, therefore amending the annual appropriation ordinance number 2020-124 of the City of Mason, Ohio, passed by the Council of the City of Mason, Ohio on December 14, 2020 for the year 2021.
All right. Mrs. Grubbs, you're in luck. Mr. Hanson is going to discuss the next two items together.
Yes, and this, I probably won't be very smooth because Ms. Grubbs made me feel a little inadequate, and I'm going to have to speak into the microphone.
I've been harping on it all year.
You asked what these mean, and probably first, an apology is probably merited. These are ordinances that were required by state laws to do. And I think sometimes what happens when the law requires something and we get caught up in this, when you read those, when Jeff reads that out loud, it's a lot of kind of formula, if not archaic language, that we kind of inherit because these are responsibilities the city has because the state institutes these. So an apology for the language because I doubt many people could read that and off the cuff tell what it means. And then I thought, what's the simplest way to explain what is a lot of numbers? I think if we think of these as balancing our checkbook, which some people still do, and maybe you end the year trying to get all your checkbooks all reconciled and cleaned up so you can start the year with new checkbooks. The problem here is maybe most of us have one checkbook and maybe a couple of other accounts. The city has over 1,000 line items. So think of that like 1,000 checkbooks that at the end of the year, we try and get those all reconciled and cleaned up. That's what these ordinances are. And ideally, we have, for our finance director's sake, we have as few changes as possible in those 1,000 line items to get them all reconciled. That is both what Ordinance 123 and when we read 124 essentially are. They have a slightly different meaning in that a reappropriation is moving money within a fund from one checkbook to the other. The supplemental means that we're moving money from a fund into another line item. It's all still movement of money to reconcile those checkbooks. That's my simplest explanation.
Does that mean that if I took 124 to mean that somebody
No, not necessarily. And let me maybe give some examples. If you have, well, I'll give some examples, but first, I may have several checkbooks, and I have a plan for how I hope my money goes through the year. If one checkbook is for my heating cost, and it was especially expensive winter, or especially harsh winter, I may have spent more than I'd put in my checkbook. But that may mean that it was a very nice summer. I have extra money in my air conditioning, so I may move that money over here. It doesn't mean anything's necessarily over budget, and some of them actually mean I had more revenues there, and so instead of moving it, I'm going to try and pay down my mortgage. So I'm going to move it over to my mortgage. All of those types of movements require reappropriation or supplemental. Because those 1,000 checkbooks aren't all within the same, maybe within the same household. Maybe I have 5 checkbooks for my daughter, so I need to make sure those all her money and that all stays within, and I have 5 more for my son, so I got to do that. There's funds, and then there's line items, and with 1,000 of those, you have to make sure where it's transferred. For example, I couldn't transfer something from sewer, which is based on sewer customers, over to the community center, which is based on fees for the community center. So there's a certain methodology you have to keep to avoid putting, switching funds to a place they don't belong. Okay.
Okay.
If you want a better lesson, our finance director, Joe Riegelsberger, will spend 2-3 hours, and you will be well educated. Okay. And maybe the best way for council's sake is just to give some examples of those checkbooks. Some of the changes are balances. So for example, we're moving $17 million to the General Capital Improvement Fund. That means based on our total revenues and where our expenses fell, we're able to move $17 million out of that operating revenue over to capital, where it can be reinvested in projects like roads or structures. Another type is debt. We were able to move funds out of that same revenue stream to pay off debt early. So we were able to manage our debt better, but to do that we had to move money from the vacation fund over to the mortgage fund. Some of them have to do with grants. So we may have received money from the state, but we had to advance some money. Now we need to move some money to get that reconciled to comply with the grant. Others are agreements. Maybe during the year, we made an agreement where we would, with another entity, invest money in a joint fund. At end of year, we need to make account for that agreement to make sure the money gets moved into that fund. Some of the examples on the supplemental side, and it's interesting because we have long names for these, lots of line items. We basically call these housekeeping items, which means at end of year, you just have to go through this, you have to do the legislation to make sure your accounts are all clean. Some of the supplementals are for opportunities that we didn't anticipate a year ago, or maybe we anticipated, but we weren't ready to budget for them because we didn't want to count our eggs before they hatched. Those would be things like economic development. The recent groundbreaking for Mercy Health, we participated to attract that development there, so we need to make sure those funds are moved over. The development on Western Road Golf Course, and subsequently Dorothy Lane announced, that required some funds. There were opportunities to purchase property that the city invested in for future job creation. We had to move money over to those because we hadn't planned on doing that a year ago because the opportunity may not have been there. There are other transfers, and some of these have those 1,000 checkbooks. 17 million, that's a big deal. There's, I just lost it, 18,000 here that needs to be reduced out of a very specific fund in municipal court. Needs to be reduced because it's based on the payments that it receives, and once it reaches a too high a level, those need to be moved out. Those are probably the best example. There's other ones that have to do with what's called tax increment financing. Similar where if the project has succeeded very well, so more revenues are generated, but we have an agreement with the schools that we will pay them because of the original agreement. We have to add more money there. Doesn't mean we went over budget. It actually means that, well, it means we went over budget on the expense because we did so well. We also went over budget on revenues. And a lot of those have to do with those type of situations. The real message here is this is all closing out the end of the year, all those accounts. So then the next ordinance I'd want to talk about is the appropriation ordinance, which is the annual budget, which then tries to, with that clean checkbook reconciled, now tries to anticipate where the expenses will be for next year. It's always an impossible task because when you have 1,000 of those and you have such a varied, economy and so many things, you're never going to be spot on. And neither should you be, because you want to be flexible enough to take advantage of other opportunities. That's ultimately the message of the reappropriation supplemental as well as the appropriation. The nitty-gritty of it is kind of, except for Joe Riegelsberger, it's kind of boring. And maybe some present company. But it's a lot of numbers and a lot of math to try and get you a clean slate. I hope that helps, and I do apologize. It does get wordy. And I'm trying to speak into my microphone. That is both on ordinance 2021, 123, and 124, unless there are questions from council.
All right. That was fantastic, really. We need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? We need a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Any council discussion on this?
Yes, Mayor.
Ordinance 123. Yes.
Could you explain that again?
Mr. Riegelsberger will be doing a full audit of those statements.
Oh, yeah. It's too bad. You've been recorded. Okay. Anybody else from council? We've had this in our packets. We had committee meetings over this topic, and council has been well educated on the numbers and the line items up to this point, even though you don't see them in front of us. We are aware of what's going on with that. So I think we all probably feel confident in how we're going to vote tonight. All right, well, let's go ahead and call the roll.
Councilmember Hunterlaw?
Yes.
Mayor Grossman?
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson?
Yes.
Councilmember Chance?
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn?
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gill?
Yes.
Item 13 on the agenda is Ordinance 2021-124. We need a motion to read that by title only, please.
So moved.
Oh, second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? All right.
An ordinance authorizing the supplemental appropriations of monies, therefore amending the annual appropriation ordinance number 2020-124 of the City of Mason, Ohio, passed by the Council of the City of Mason, Ohio on December 14, 2021. Although I think that's 2020.
Oops.
For the year 2021. Yeah, but that. It should say December 14, 2020.
Mine does say that.
For the year. December.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's okay. That is a typographical error that will be corrected.
Right. All right. There's provision for that in our charter when there are typos. Okay. All right. We need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading, please.
So moved.
All in favor? Any opposed? We need a motion to adopt.
Second.
Okay. Any council discussion? Let's call the roll, please.
Mayor Grossman?
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson?
Yes.
Councilmember Chance?
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn?
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gill?
Yes.
Councilmember Hunterlaw?
Yes.
Item 14 is Ordinance 2021-125. We need a motion to read by title only, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Jeff?
2022 Annual Appropriation Ordinance.
Eric?
Which probably proves the kind of a truism, the ordinances with the most words probably have the least meaning, the ordinance with the least words. This is the annual appropriation ordinance or the city's budget for 2022. And it's, similarly, it's more than is, feasible to really cover in the amount of detail that we have time for here. The Finance Committee has spent the time, has had multiple meetings to discuss this, to go through most of the significant items in there, and they can speak to that when I kind of give you the overview. For purposes of the council as well as the audience, a lot of this is reminders, a couple of principles that undergird and have historically for the entire budget is very conservative financial assumptions. We don't, and again, some of this leads to the supplemental and reappropriation. We try and be very conservative in how well the following year will go, and that then has a ripple effect on how the rest of the budget is composed. Flexibility, however, is also key in the budget, and that's a benefit of the city being blessed with resources that we're able to time and choose opportunities when they're most valuable or most cost effective. And typically that materializes in pretty aggressive investment in future revenue generating opportunities. And then also it's a planning document. I think sometimes folks perceive the budget as a very rigid guideline that doesn't allow for smart decisions. It actually allows, in the way the budget's put together, for flexibility so that we're able to take advantage of opportunities that we weren't aware of, and it doesn't bind us to anything. It doesn't bind council to any of the projects discussed or initiatives discussed. Those all come back to council. Anything that's of any significance comes back to council, if not committees, for discussion and then final action here. But it is a planning document, so it sends the signal to staff that these are items that have support or interest to move forward. And one common theme, and I know we've talked about this before, but is the notion of set-aside funds. We're in a position where we're able to be more aggressive in planning for the future, things like the fleet, and now increasingly things like the street maintenance program, which is a large expense, as well as maintenance of facilities. We're now able to be smart, be flexible, and when we place funds in those set-asides to try and even out some of those cycles I described, so that when there's a harsh winter, it doesn't throw off. You know, we've set aside funds to kind of average that out over time. That has proven to be a very wise for multiple reasons, including our credit rating, as well as protects the city from financial cycles that are inevitable. That all being said, as far as principles, I will quickly go through some of the highlights. This is not exhaustive, but some of the more significant items. The 2022 budget includes over $28 million for capital investment. So those are things like roads, sewers, tools, fleet. One of the larger ones is roundabouts on US 42, the construction of those. A sewer extension on Mason Merrill Millgrove and 42 that's in conjunction with that. In the finance department, a new finance software upgrade that is outdated and is expensive. Also funds for moving forward on a dog park, which has been discussed by council several times as well as committees. Excuse me. Continued infrastructure improvements in the golf course, things like that we'll discuss in a moment, irrigation, bunkers, improving the tees. There are also projects on here, and this is another theme in the budget, is financial resources versus resources of time. And sometimes while the financial resources is available, the time is not. And that's proven especially true as we've dealt with disruptions from COVID, supply chain, et cetera. There are projects that were actually budgeted in this year's budget, and there wasn't time. And some of those that will move forward into the 22 budget includes landscaping enhancements on the Western Railroad interchange, storm sewer improvements on Indianwood, continued improvement on the Fire Training Center, Safety Service Annex, and moving forward with right-of-way acquisition for the widening on North Mason Montgomery Road in order to add a sidewalk connection. There are also, and this is a new group in the budget this year based on that notion of time being scarce, there are also projects that we hope to be able to get to if the funding, grant streams materialize or if other opportunities present themselves. Didn't want to raise the expectation that these are, if those things don't match, these may need to be continued into future budget years. That includes adaptive ball fields at McKeno Park. That is dependent on funding materializing. Central Park Boulevard extension, providing a connection to Western Road Road. That has been in several budget cycles and has suffered because lack of time and amount of priority. We'd like to get that done this year. Replacement of 2 tornado sirens to keep us on a cycle of keeping the tornado sirens updated. There are a couple of other projects in there. Annual repair and maintenance program, continue very aggressive funding to include set aside for the annual street maintenance program. Studying golf center facilities, again planning for the future as those facilities age and require maintenance and ultimately replacement. Streetlight replacements, upgrades, citywide roofing maintenance and repair, annual tree replacement are among the annual programs that are continuing the budget. We talked about set-asides. We've done very well at that on fleet. I think we're to the point where the fleet is about evened out. You will see some evidence in that in some of the upcoming ordinances. There's an opportunity, and because we have that set aside, the actual year when we purchase them doesn't matter as much, and we're able to position the timing more closely to the need as well as to the price. And you'll see some legislation here where we'll advance some of those fleet items that we talked about for next year's budget because we believe we can get a better deal if we act more rapidly on them. There's also an update. I mentioned in here that the budget includes $500,000 for replacement of golf carts, which is timely, although we felt, as of last week, with the status of the research we're doing, that we may be recommending moving forward with an annual lease, because we thought that that would save money, based on some changes that just literally occurred last Wednesday as far as trade-in value, timing, pricing. We now believe a purchase will be much more cost-effective, so that is likely. And that is another example. Likely the sooner that happens, the greater the savings that are possible, even though delivery may be delayed. Street resurfacing. Hope to continue to build that balance. That is a much larger initiative and a much longer term than the fleet. Hoping to gradually build a balance there that again evens out what will be a very fluctuating need for roadway replacements and maintenance. Just a couple of other of notice type of items here. We do expect that some of these projects will be delayed or we will we'll struggle to move forward as there are items such as construction projects currently underway. The full opening and programming of the 50-meter pool will require time and effort to make sure that that asset is managed well and in a position to become break even. The impact of COVID-19, that includes supply issue issues, delivery issues, staffing issues, will continue to impact the city in often unexpected ways. Expect that total impact we won't be able to fully measure or account for a couple of years. There are several, and the budget has benefited in past years, and that gap between revenue expenses has led to some aggressive capital investment at the expense of staffing. We have been very creative in how we fill vacancies and when we fill vacancies. There are currently about 17 full-time positions that have been vacant to some degree for multiple years. And the budget reflects that here we have reached a place, if not the perfect timing, where we need to fill some of those positions. So back to the issue of having time to accommodate all the project and workload there. I don't know that the labor market will always be agreeable with that, but we've reached the conclusion that we need to get ahead of that to be more aggressive in filling positions. We will continue to be very thoughtful and not necessarily add a position the same type of responsibilities that it had before. Emphasis on cross-training and making those resources that can be deployed in multiple ways will continue. One item on staffing, there's in the community center, changing some part-time positions into full-time to help address that issue of stabilizing our staffing position. I think that'll be more cost-effective ultimately instead of the service drag on staffing and the overtime expense. Fire has had success reducing overtime expenses as we make that transition. One initiative that was begun this year and is budgeted to move forward much more next year is the notion of a third medic, which we have staffed on a part-time basis. The budget includes funding and the anticipation that that third medic, within current revenue estimates, can move forward to a 24/7 operation, so become similar to the rest of the fire department, which will reduce response times during peak activity. We've had considerable success, and it will take time to staff that, to find the folks to make the staffing possible, but that is an ambition. We talked about some of the strategies and revenue expense pressures. One other message, overall debt is anticipated to decrease next year by 4.2 million to a level of 53.8 million. That is compared to about a decade ago when it had crossed over 100 million. So that continues to be an aggressive, it's both an opportunity but one that we want to aggressively manage. I think I've covered all the highlights. If you want to go into the detail, I'm going to need another meeting. With all that said, this is a result, and I know it gets a little boring, but it is the significant planning document. It doesn't restrict council, it doesn't bind you to it, but it sets out some of the priorities for the following year. It will need addressed. It will not be perfect. There are areas here that we already know will be weak, probably on the time side, and it does represent continued aggressive investment in the future of the city, attention to controlling costs, and underestimating our revenues, and then being pleasantly surprised when our business success continues to pay dividends. With that, the work from the Finance Department as well as the Finance Committee, they are recommending adoption of this, of the annual budget.
Do you need a glass of water?
I take it several.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much, Eric. We need a motion.
If Ms.
to-
Grubbs
Oh, I'm
followed all of it.
Yeah.
There'll be a test later.
She heard me.
Okay, we're going to have a quiz later, Mrs. Grubbs. All right. We need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? We need a motion to adopt.
So moved?
So moved.
We need a second. Thank you. Any council discussion? All right, let's call the roll, please.
Councilmember Nelson,
Yes.
Councilmember Chance,
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn,
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb,
Yes.
Councilmember Hunterlaw,
Yes.
Mayor Grossman.
Yes. Item 15 is ordinance 2021-126. We need a motion to read by title only.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Jeff?
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Commercial Irrigation and Turf, Inc. for the City of Mason Golf Center irrigation replacement project in the amount of $3,249,583.
Kurt?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. Last year, Council authorized design of a new system to replace our antiquated system at the Golf Center. Currently, it was built in two phases. The original was back in the early 70s, and the new part of the system was in 1996. So we have a system that's 25 and 50 years old, in need of constant maintenance and repairs. And with the design being done, we put the project out to bid a little later than we had anticipated, mainly due to the pandemic, which I hate using as an excuse, but it truly was an issue. Supply chain and other issues delayed the bidding. We had 3 responsive bidders, the low bidder being Commercial Irrigation and Turf. They were the lowest and best bid, and after careful review of the bids, both by staff and the experts that we hired to both design the irrigation system and the new improvements to the golf course, we're recommending that we go with alternate 3 with option 1 in phase 2. That provides the most cost-effective long-term solution for the irrigation out at the Golf Center. We're hopeful that the project might be finished up in spring of 2023. Again, supply chain issues are a factor in getting the parts for sprinkler systems. So with that, ordinance 2021-126 is recommended for adoption, and that's a contract with Commercial Irrigation and Turf, and the amount of $3,249,583. And I'll answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. We need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
So moved? Second?
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? We need a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Any council discussion on this one?
Yeah, Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah, real quick, Kurt, I know there's been a lot of dialogue and discussion around the golf course about possible construction, rerouting, And just to confirm that this, this new irrigation and where we are putting it will allow for any type of, whatever we do out there, I guess
Right.
is the easiest way to say it. Just
Yeah,
put
yep.
people at ease.
Right, this system is for all 22 holes. I left that out. I should have addressed that. The original budgeted amount was just for 18 holes, and this will take care of all 22 holes on the course, so, yep.
And if I may add clarification to Ashley's comments, nothing is changing right now, but it's designed so that it could be changed if that were to occur, but nothing's changing now.
Correct, with the
Okay.
routing, the current routing will stay the same. Yep.
Got it.
Yep.
Got it. Anyone else? I'm glad this is coming together. All right, let's call the roll.
Councilmember Chance?
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn?
Yes?
Councilmember Stricula?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb?
Yes.
Councilmember Hunterlaw?
Yes.
Mayor Grossman?
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson?
Yes. Item 16 on the agenda, Ordinance 2021-127. We need a motion to read by title only. All in favor? Any opposed? Jeff?
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with FIDA Freightliner Cincinnati, Inc. for the purchase of one 2022 Freightliner M2 dump truck in the amount of $90,860 and declaring an emergency.
Jennifer?
Yes, Mayor, members of council, if you don't mind, I'm going to cover the next 4 ordinances. Eric touched on this a little bit earlier, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here, but one of the first programs that we implemented setting up contingency funds was our vehicle replacement program. And Eric, like I said, touched on it earlier. What that has done for us, those budgeting practices, our cost savings measures, where we're more closely aligning our vehicle replacement with issues that we are actually having with the vehicle. It has allowed us to grow a very healthy reserve fund balance for any fleet replacements that are needed. And what that does is it allows us flexibility when the time is needed. So you see things like when there's downturn in economy. This past year, it's been more closely related to COVID. We ordered vehicles for both the police and fire departments early in February. We just took delivery of fire vehicles last week. We're still waiting on police vehicles. And so that COVID, the supply chain, is messing up a lot of things for us in order to take those vehicles into our fleet. What that flexibility with our fund balance allows us to do is to maybe hopefully move forward with some purchases that would be scheduled for next year, this year. The reason we want to move forward with those purchases is hopefully we'll get them in a timely manner. At minimum, we'll get on a list of requests for that equipment. So we'll be one of the first on the list versus waiting till next year to approve legislation where we could be lower on the list and we may not get that equipment. So some of this equipment is critical to city operations. The first piece of equipment is a second wing plow truck. If you recall, last year we ordered a wing plow truck for snow and ice removal operations. It has been extremely beneficial to our fleet and those operations. It allows us to basically remove double the lane lines that it typically take 1 to 4 trucks to remove. So with that, we'd like to order a second wing plow truck. Ordinance 2021-128 is all the equipment needed to fill out that truck, including the truck bed, the snow plow, the salt V-box, and the automated ground speed controllers. The 2 other ordinances, 2021-129 and 130, both are for some mowers for our Parks Department. Both the pieces of equipment that we're replacing are 2008 models that are in very poor condition. All these purchases will be made through the state purchasing. There's additional equipment that we will be coming to council early in January. I had hoped to have those pieces of equipment at this meeting as well. Unfortunately, we couldn't get state bid pricing or quotes from our vendors at this time. But like I said, early in January, I'd like to get those before council so we can move forward with those purchases and hopefully get them into our fleet before they're really, really needed. With that, we're recommending, the Finance Committee has reviewed all the fleet purchases and are recommending Ordinance 2021-127 through 2021-134 adoption. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption for Ordinance 127 after the first reading.
So moved.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? We need a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Any council discussion? Let's call the roll, please.
Councilmember Bradburn.
Yes?
Councilmember Stricula.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb.
Yes.
Councilmember Hunterlaw.
Yes.
Mayor Grossman.
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson.
Yes.
Councilmember Chance.
Yes.
Item 17 on the agenda is Ordinance 2021-128. We need a motion to read by title only, please.
So moved.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Jeff?
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Henderson Products for the purchase and installation of a truck bed, snow plows, salt V-Box, and automated ground speed salt controller in the amount of $153,357 and declaring an emergency.
We need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
So moved.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion to adopt?
So moved.
Okay, any council discussion?
Mayor,
Yes.
is this in regards to the wing plow? Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right, let's call the roll.
Councilmember Stricula.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb.
Yes.
Councilmember Hunterlaw.
Yes.
Mayor Grossman.
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson.
Yes.
Councilmember Chance.
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn.
Yes.
Item 18, Ordinance 2021-129. We need a motion to read by title only.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Jeff?
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Century Equipment for the purchase of one Toro 4000D mower in the amount of $71,172 and declaring an emergency.
We need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
So moved.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? We need a motion to adopt. Thank you. Any council discussion? Let's call the roll, please.
Vice Mayor Gilb.
Yes.
Councilmember Hunterlaw.
Yes.
Mayor Grossman.
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson.
Yes.
Councilmember Chance.
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn.
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula.
Yes.
Item 19, Ordinance 2021-130. We need a motion to read that by title only.
So moved.
All in favor? Any opposed?
Authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with Century Equipment for the purchase of one Toro Sand Pro 3040 Diamond Master in the amount of $22,502 and declaring an emergency.
We need a motion to suspend the rule and allow for adoption after the first reading.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? We need a motion to adopt. Any council discussion on the Diamond Master? Let's call the roll, please.
Councilmember Hunterlaw.
Yes.
Mayor Grossman.
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson.
Yes.
Councilmember Chance.
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn.
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb.
Yes.
Item 20 on the agenda is consideration of removing Ordinance 2021-102 from the table. So I believe that would happen with a motion to remove it from the table, followed by a second, and that's a non-debatable motion, I believe.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, let's call the roll, please.
Mayor Grossman.
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson.
No.
Councilmember Chance.
No.
Councilmember Bradburn.
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula.
No.
Vice Mayor Gilb.
Yes.
Councilmember Hunterlaw.
Yes.
Okay. All right, motion passes. And the ordinance was at our desks, I believe. The zoning code ordinance. Ordinance 2021-102. So this would be a second reading.
It's actually already had, well, we did the public hearing at the second. Right, I'm sorry, Mayor. It's actually had 2 readings and the public hearing. So for council to take action, it's been pulled off the table, so it's before you for consideration. You could proceed with you would probably do a motion to read by title only.
Okay.
And then consideration.
Okay. I need a motion to read Ordinance 2021-102 by title only, please.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? All right.
An ordinance to repeal, amend, and add various sections and chapters of the zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations, and to amend the zoning map regarding downtown Mason zoning.
Okay. Okay, we need a motion to adopt, please.
So moved.
Second?
All right, any council discussion?
Mayor? Yes.
Okay, one at a time. Woo, okay. Let's do ladies first, please. Thank you.
I'm requesting that we keep this on the table because we were supposed to have a work session on it and we never did. And my fear is, I know that we will have a work session because I know the new council will be passionate about this, and listening to the chamber and hearing what the questions are that have been brought up. It may not be changed, it may be exactly like this, but I think that we owe it to the chamber as well as some business owners who had some questions and concerns to sit down and talk with them about it. If we pass it tonight, we have that work session and decide that we have to undo this because we had issues, then I believe it would have to go all the way back to the Planning Commission, and that will really stall this in the event that it stays as written. So just to avoid that extra timing, having to go back to Planning Commission, I would request that we have a work session prior to voting on this.
Thank you for your request.
Yeah.
Is a work session required based on the way it was tabled? I'm just curious.
But
I didn't catch that from reading the minutes.
It was tabled, and then the discussion following that motion was included both a possible work session as well as discussion with the Downtown Committee of Council. Both of those were amongst the items that were discussed as may be prudent before it being untabled. But it was left, it would take action by council to come off the table.
Oh, okay, okay. And Mr. Chance, what did you want to add?
Yeah, to echo what Councilmember Nelson said, I mean, I'm reading our council minutes, and it clearly states that this was tabled by 5 yeses and 1 no, and I know you weren't here. So I'm just confused, and with a caveat that we were going to have a work session and a committee meeting to discuss this and bring everybody together, have the discussion, and we have a lot of players, a lot of stakeholders in this, and I think we all openly admitted to that. And we all, 5 and 1 no. And so we're bringing this back off the table for what reason? I would really like an explanation for that.
Mayor, if I can address that. So this has been a process that's been over 3 years long of the city working desperately hard.
So what's wrong with 2 more weeks?
And so, and then with all the downtown committee meetings we had, and at least one of the new council members was at almost every single of those meetings and was involved in those. And I'm pretty sure that we've discussed this to a T, and if you recall, even Planning Commission was 100%, except for in word, of supporting this, but then he voted against it just because he missed an email. So, I mean, there was a pretty strong consensus. This was rock solid, locked in on something we needed to do as a city. So I'm not sure where the drawback is completely from my colleagues there on the other side that want to hold this up some more. So this is something that we believe was all best, and all it did was simplify it. So I'm not sure why we would hesitate on this at all.
Mayor, to Councilmember Hunterlaw's point, I totally agree with you that this has been going on a long time and that we have looked at this and we've had a lot of opinions from a lot of different places. And the reason why we put this on the table is so we could get everyone in the room. I mean, I think we openly admit that this is about 90% done. And I think you even agreed to that. Well, there are some open agenda items that our stakeholders, meaning our business owners downtown, still would like their opinion heard. Are you against that?
I'm not against that. Their voices.
Guys, through the chair.
Well, it just sounds like some of us are against that. I am. I'm all for this thing. I think we've done a heck of a job. I spoke out last time and I said, this does simplify it. This does add a lot of value and opportunity downtown. So I'm confused once again that we're going to sit up here and try to rush something through to the table, which we voted 5 yeses and 1 no to table this thing to provide an opportunity to discuss proposed changes with the community. Discussing having a work session to discuss a proposed zoning code. What is wrong with that? Like I said, I'm all for this. I read through it. We had some really good discussions about it, but again, I'm sitting here going, we were supposed to do this, 5 yeses and 1 no, but now the next meeting, now that you're here, we're bringing it off the table for what reason? We have not performed our duties, which we told the public that we would do. Did we not? You just shake your head no.
Member Chance, remember the rules, please.
We literally did this, and this is where I get so confused with this council up here. It's like, we just said 5 yes, 1 no. We're going to have a work session. We're going to table this. Get all people involved so we can make sure this is the exact, I forget the terminology you just used, but that it is solid, that it is clear, that all of our stakeholders are in this thing together, opposed to dissenting voices from here to here to here. If this takes 6 hours, I'll sit in a 6-hour meeting and get this thing done. If we're 90% done, why don't, again, to your point though, if this is something, one last hurrah that you want to try to get done and shove through,
Member
then
Chance,
we'll
that's
address
not
it on the
appropriate.
13th. But this is exactly what drives me crazy.
Well, I'm sorry.
We sat here and we listened to the public and said 5 yeses and 1 no to do these 2 certain functions, and we can't even do that.
Okay, we'll try to unpack that.
Mayor.
Member Honorla, do you want to finish?
I'd love to maybe even hear staff explain, maybe defend council members' Chance's accusation that we have not included everybody and we have not done a thorough job in 3 years on the rezoning of downtown. It is absolutely outrageous to make such comments, and there's something else at play, that why he wants to pause again.
Here you
All
go.
I know, it's ridiculous with the amount of work we've done as a city for this, at the steering committees, the outreach, including of the chamber on every step of the way here, and for them to say now, no, we haven't done that, and we're only 90%. This was done. We had it done, and the Planning Commission confirmed it.
Any questions on that? Or any responses? Did you have a specific question?
Eric, would you care to maybe defend on, do you think we've done a thorough job on this process? Or do we lack something? Would you say we're only 90% done on this? Is there something lacking that we need to do?
As far as public input, or as far as following the rules of
Chance said we're
Planning
only
Commission?
done.
Member Chance, I've warned you over and over, please.
Mayor Grossman, may I respond?
Not yet, because we're in the middle of something else. Okay, just hang on. So you're asking about public input?
What I would tell you is public input, you're never going to be, it's going to be impossible to have 100% public input. It's always going to be aspirational. More is better unless it doesn't drive you to a conclusion. So I don't know that I can answer your question. I think we did probably one of the more aggressive jobs compared to any other rezoning on trying to cast as wide a net, as frequent meetings, personal contact, as anything I have experience with. Kurt may speak otherwise. It's also a significant rezoning, a sensitive area, a large area. So I don't know that you can ever be finished, and mark it out and say it's done and it's complete, because you'll never be complete with that. I think I'd emphasize what I said at the last meeting. It's the structure of this rezoning, the folks that it benefits, if they're not comfortable, that's the only urgency I would think you have, is if the folks that benefit are ready for it. If they're saying, hey, delaying on that is going to cost me money or customers or business, I think that's a component. If the folks that it benefits don't mind delay, they're the only ones harmed by it. The sooner it goes into effect, the more benefit it gives those folks. I don't think you'll ever be able to measure, take a census of all those folks and say, well, this percentage, this, that percent, because it's dynamic as well. Since we did the process, I'm willing to bet in those, is it 800 plus property owners? I'm willing to bet 10% of them have changed, have turned over. So you're never done. Whether enough's enough, we've been aggressive, and we could do more.
Mayor? Sure. All right.
Yes, Mr.
So that poses a question that I have. How many people, Mr. Hanson, are beating down your door saying, please get this done right now?
No one is beating down my door to get it done right now, and no one's beating down my door to say stall it.
So what I'm hearing you, though, the only people that would benefit from this is someone that needs this done right now and that are looking to do a project or something that is going to benefit either their company or whatever it might be. But we don't have any of those right now.
They're not talking to me. I've not heard
Yeah,
from
I've
them.
heard that.
Kurt.
So my question is, why in the world can this not wait for a work session?
Member Chance, is it okay if I
Sure.
respond to some of that? Okay, so it was I that asked to have this item put on the agenda because I missed the last meeting and I wanted to be involved in a dialogue since we were the group of council members that started this process. I had hoped that by the end of this 2-year cycle, we would have finished it because we have been working on it for 3 years, and I think almost all of us were here for that, 5 of us. So I had hoped that we could accomplish that. And I was at the Planning Commission meeting where the representative from the MAID CDC came in with a letter and signed by some of the property owners there. And the specifics that they had to criticize the comprehensive plan zoning code updates were not specifics. In fact, they hadn't even really gone over it at that point in time, but we've had time since then. But what they were asking for is that they could have the ability or opportunity to create their master plan first before the zoning code update was made. And everybody on Planning Commission, and many of them have been there for decades, unanimously thought that it was important to proceed with the zoning code updates prior to any type of master plan. And so there's that context. The other context was that there were no specific issues with it, so we asked them to bring those to the public hearing, and I believe Ms. Taylor raised one about something, and our law director communicated with us about that there may have been an error made by Planning Commission or some type of,
If I could.
yeah, help me out with that, because I wasn't here.
Maybe I let TJ down on my answer. Maybe he was asking a different question. Where we left this was there were concerns that maybe Planning Commission in particular hadn't followed the zoning code. Maybe that part of the process, there were some legal errors and I should have mentioned this earlier. We looked at that. Jeff looked at that. If he cares to speak to it, but confirmed maybe I'd re-answer TJ's question. There was nothing wrong or flawed or illegal in the process, certainly through Planning Commission. Whether that means you don't pursue further public input or you do is a separate question. You don't need to delay or wait in order to correct any procedural errors. There were none. But that doesn't remove your choice or your desire if you delay or if you move forward. That should be a separate question. I'm sorry, I think that's what you're asking, I missed it.
Okay, thanks. And then to touch on something that you said towards the end of your remarks, something about it being project-based, and that was something that was specific in the letter. It was specifically vague or vaguely specific, but the letter that Ms. Taylor presented the Planning Commission was that there was an appearance of the zoning code updates entirely being made for the benefit of one project. And you've mentioned that, and I want to be very clear, it's not for the benefit of one project. It's a public service that we committed to providing to the entire public. And while some people may have said, pause, pump the brakes, we've got 800 property owners there. It could be possible that 790 of them don't even know that somebody's saying pump the brakes. We don't have a really good way to gauge that, but what we did do as a body is commit to providing this public service, and we have carefully studied it and gone through proper procedures. So I'm concerned that by pausing and pumping the brakes, that we are showing special or preferential treatment to a certain group of people who want us to pause and pump the brakes, or perhaps pausing and pump the brakes because that particular group of people does not want to see a certain project go into downtown. So we're working between the tension of both ends, and that's an appearance that concerns me. That doesn't mean that that's 100% correct, but I'm saying it's somewhat obvious that there are people that are very opposed to a certain project and have made allegations directly on social media and in public meetings that there is an appearance that updating the zoning code at this time would somehow help one person over another. But on the flip side, not doing it could somehow help one person over another. So I wanted to raise this tonight so we could talk about it. I hope that it would be adopted. I don't know if it will, but I think it's very well done, and it's designed to be flexible so that almost any kind of project could work. I think it's very well done, and if it needs to be changed, we can always go back and change it, but I don't think it will because it was so carefully done. I think that nobody has come forward with any specific claim that it's not well done, and we've had since August there were meetings about it in the summer, and then it went to Planning Commission in September?
Probably September.
Yeah, September, and then we've had October. Here we are at the very end of November. So I feel, and this is my trying to stay neutral opinion, that this was a commitment we made to the public to provide this public service. And it doesn't mean I'm not listening, but perhaps I am listening. And I am listening. I am listening. And people who want us to pause and pump the brakes are going to be disappointed. But this was a commitment that we made, and it's part of our job to provide this public service. If the next council wants to repeal it, I guess they can. But nobody has raised any specific reason why we shouldn't adopt it or we should repeal it.
Well, Mayor.
It is not time to be recognized by the audience.
Mayor, and I totally agree with you. And dispelling that this was done for one project, I mean, we have been doing this for a while. The other project wasn't even, on a blimp. We weren't even looking at it. So I totally agree with you that this is not geared towards one project. And I totally agree with you that this has been done really well. And I think we have a really good boilerplate to move forward. But if you were here, there were a few people that stood up and pointed out very specific reasons that we still need to address. That our zoning is still, that we would still need to address through the steering committee, through the chamber, through the CDC. And I'm just, all I was saying, what I wanted to do was, we have all these different inputs of data. I want to see them all in one room and hear it out.
Well, I think we've had lots of opportunities for that. But I am also concerned about, let's go back to the preferential treatment.
Have we had one work session on this?
We've invited the chamber and the CDC to come and have dialogues over topics like this repeatedly, and they've refused.
Well, that's
And when we have had a work session over a topic such as this, they refuse to answer our questions about the CDC and what its intentions are. And that was early on this year. Well, it's not false, or I would know the answers, and I don't. So one of the other concerns I have is that the process we went through was through city government, and you want to add an extra filter, which is the chamber and the CDC. And the CDC has expressed it has an interest in development in downtown. And this is something that I heard off the record, but just that there are people involved in the CDC that are trying to buy property right now, and that's another concern I have if they're trying to
You are
control
assigning
costs.
motive.
But
point of order.
that is something that I've heard from a couple of property owners.
Don't be spreading rumors.
Please don't interrupt. But that could, if that's happening, are we showing favorable treatment by delaying it when there's no specific reason to delay it?
Mayor?
And why do we
Quite an
add an
accusation.
extra filter for it to go through to make it
To do it
even
the
harder
right
to
way.
accomplish?
That's why.
But wait a minute, you guys are interrupting. I know you don't like what I said, but that's an example of not listening. Yeah, and I knew you were going to laugh at that, but it's just a fact. When someone says something that is, I've just noticed in this room, undesired, there's an awful big tendency for people to heckle and interrupt. There's no lie to the public. What I'm saying is, you're asking us to add an extra filter for it to go through, but the actual experts on zoning are the ones, those are the filters we took it through, McBride, Dale, Clarion, who had a steering committee from the public, our planning commission and zoning staff, and our zoning staff, our building department, all of those people have that education and expertise in this topic, and the Maid Chamber CDC simply does not. Although they do say that they represent stakeholders, they don't represent every stakeholder in downtown Mason or in the public, but they do represent some of the stakeholders. So that's me getting it out on the table since we took it off the table. Those are my viewpoints. I'm sorry if you don't like some of them. I'm not trying to offend anyone. I'm just trying to do our job. And that's what I believe our job is, and that's part of council discussion, to share ideas, which are often different from one another. Is there anybody else who has anything to add?
Mayor, I do.
Yes.
Eric, if you could please, on December 2nd, call the new council members and schedule a work session. I would appreciate that. And if we have to take this off the table, it's very unfortunate, because now we're going to have to send it back to Planning Commission if there's any changes. And that's just injustice. But that's your decision, so.
What specific changes have been proposed?
Well, that's the thing. There may be some, there may not be some. We owe it to them to sit down and listen to them for one meeting. I don't know why you're
But we've
against
tried and tried and tried and tried. And
Well,
they've
we're
been
trying right now.
included just
You
like
sh-
every
you
other
should have
member of
called-
the public.
You should have called. I don't care that you weren't here. You should have read the notes. You should have watched on ICRC, our meeting. You should have done this. This is your job as the mayor. You should have called this meeting before today so that we could have voted on it today if that's what you wanted to do. But no meeting has been called, and now you're just trying to bypass that whole step. That 5 individuals on this council said that they wanted to have a work session, and they agreed to it.
Okay, I talked to staff about it, just so you know. I talked to Eric, and I asked about specific issues. He said that there was a suggestion for it going back to the downtown committee or a work session, but my understanding was that the tabling was not contingent on that. And so I asked to take it off the table so we could talk about it.
Well,
And that is okay, and that is within my authority and anybody else's authority on the council.
I agree.
And I did do my job, and I tried to catch up as best I can. I was very, very sick for about 3 weeks, so I'm trying to catch up. And I didn't think that anybody would appreciate having a special council meeting called over the Thanksgiving holiday. So I'm sorry about that, but that's just the judgment call that I made.
Mayor, and if you did go back and watch, McBride Dale actually was okay with the meeting as well. They thought it was a good idea to have everybody in the room again. So just wanted to go on record and make that known.
Mayor?
Yes.
If I may, thank you. Yeah, I'll just reiterate the things that I said last time. I mean, regardless of whether it's a real issue or a perceived issue with and again, this isn't a chamber or CDC issue, and the fact that we've made it that is frankly ridiculous, and spreading rumors is, it's dangerous. I mean, there's no validation, there's no proof. I mean, you're
I made that clear.
making things up. I mean,
No, I made that clear.
that's right. It's not prudent. And our job is to be prudent with the task at hand, and the prudent thing to do is listen to the business owners. We've got a letter from 10 business owners that make up a large portion that have said that, hey, we haven't been listened to. Our input has not been taken into consideration. Again, whether real or perceived, it's there. All right, and the prudent thing to do is what we did last time, which is table it, have a work session on it. Again, if it's been 3 years, what's another month? It's another 2 months, right? Again, you know, and while you disagree with the 90% of the way there, it was said, we're 90% of the way there, let's get across the goal line. Let's do it the right way. Let's take some time and let's do it the right way. And it doesn't have to be 4, 5, 6 months. It could be 3, 4 weeks, whatever it is. But
I'll do it in a day.
But we have business owners, the people that this would benefit the most, who own property downtown, saying, stop. We have not been listened to. And we owe it to them to at least hear them out. Right? And again, and to Councilmember Nelson's standpoint, their point, there may not be any changes, but we don't know that until we hear them, until we listen. It's what you said you do. So let's listen. That's all I have to say.
Okay.
Mayor.
Real quick, Mr. Hanson, you were able to check in with each one of the people that signed the letter, the 10 property owners, and that was helpful in ameliorating some of their concerns, the letter given to Planning Commission?
Yes, our city planner and Brian may want to speak to that, if not Kurt, made personal outreach to each one of the signatories. I believe got in contact with all of them except maybe one. Help me out, Brian or Kurt. Heard their issues. I couldn't tell you any concrete thing, they said, we'll change this or do it with that. I think some of them, give us a summary, Brian, of the comments.
Yeah, Jordy was able to contact, I think, all but one of the 10 people, and there was various comments from each of them, depending on process. I don't think there was any specific comment on changing a specific rule or change a specific part of the zoning. There was more, some of them perfectly fine with it. Some of them may want additional information. And I believe we followed up with some of those people that also wanted additional information.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Anybody else? Okay, well, I'll make a suggestion here based on the feedback that I'm getting, and since I was gone. Could we put this item on the agenda for December 13th? And could we schedule a work session prior to that? Whether it's that day or...
Yes, you can do anything. I was going to comment on Councilmember Nelson's request. It's easy to call, pick a date, call a meeting. It's harder to find a date where you get a critical mass of folks.
That's a good point, yeah.
And one comment that was heard throughout the process, and maybe why the process was extended, was because folks needed ample notice.
Yeah.
So you can schedule whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
The finer trick is getting the folks that you want there, or enough of the folks that you feel need to be there. Picking that type of date is harder, especially doing it on short notice.
Yeah, and I just realized it's Christmas season, so why don't we shoot for mid-January and try to follow up with it in our final January meeting. That gives us more than a month to try and recruit people from the CDC and downtown district or other stakeholders in the city, and try to get them all here.
If we do that now, you pick the date, you pick the time, and then we can suggest by word of mouth or notices folks kind of RSVP if they want to come, and then we can be giving you kind of a rolling list of who's interested in being there. And similar, they could let us know if that isn't good.
So the normally, the scheduled council meetings would be January 10th and 24th. So perhaps the 17th is a Monday night. Well, it's Martin Luther King Day. Our schools, yeah, that might be a long weekend. Maybe sometime that week. The week of the 17th, but not the 17th, since it's Martin Luther King Day.
Mayor, if I may, I'd like to make a motion to table this ordinance.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, any council discussion on whether or not to table it at this moment while we're trying to schedule the work session that you requested?
But we have a new council taking over on 2 days. We'll table it like we originally did 3 weeks ago, and we'll figure it out.
That makes me worry. Not to assign motive, because I'm not going to, but that makes me worry that you're undermining the progress of this entire discussion.
Mayor?
We talked about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and now you guys don't want to schedule a work session.
No. You,
Oh, no, apparently not, because we
No,
want to table it until somebody else can schedule the same thing.
you just said table it and we'll schedule a work session.
No. He said table it. I didn't say table it. I said let's schedule the work session.
I thought you said table it.
I didn't mean to say table. I'm just trying to schedule a work session and accommodate people now that I've been able to listen to the feedback. So now we have a motion on the floor and a second, so we need to vote on that. Is there any other council discussion?
Could I make one suggestion, Thurskiff?
I don't know. No, I'm sorry, I'm just kidding.
It may be helpful if the motion to table was to a specific date. That gives you some predictability that a work session ought to happen before then, or if it doesn't, you'll have another opportunity to discuss. That may.
I'll make a motion to table till January 24th.
Well, we have to deal with the other motion. So, well, or you can, well, you've already had a motion and a second.
Amend my motion to January 24th. Table until January 24th.
Second.
I have a question.
Help us, Jeff.
I'm gonna ask a favor of council. Would it be possible that whoever has made any motions right now, if you just rescind all of your motions?
Done.
Okay? All the motions have been rescinded at this point. Now, I know that one of the motions was to table to January 24th. Councilmember Nelson, do you want to ask a question first?
I do.
Is that okay, Mayor? Okay.
So if we table it till January 24th, does that prohibit Eric from calling everyone and trying to schedule a work session?
No. What it does is it will table this ordinance. It will automatically appear on your agenda for January 24th. You still will need to, if council's desires to have a work session, Eric will still do whatever he needs to do to schedule that work session. I think his point is if you're tabling it to a specific date, that will probably help get, it creates at least that deadline for when.
Window.
So that means the work session would have to be on January 24th if we discussed it
No,
in a public
before.
meeting. But it can't because it's tabled.
It just means on January 24th, it will be on the agenda. And you could choose to table it again. You could choose to adopt it. You could choose to defeat it. You could do all kinds of things. It doesn't mean you can't discuss it before then.
Right. I think to your point, Mayor, you can have, it will be tabled until January 24th. You will not be voting on it until January 24th. You can have a work session to discuss downtown zoning, to discuss the ordinance, but there won't be any vote. And we typically don't vote at work sessions anyway. So you can have a work session, schedule a council work session to discuss that ordinance. It will be on your, assuming that this motion proceeds, it will be on your agenda for on January 24th.
Mayor, but prior to that, to your point, if we can have this work session, and this is hypothetical and I don't see this happening, but we could have this work session prior to December 13th, our next meeting, and if we button it up by then and everybody's happy, we could vote on it then, correct? We could untable it on the 13th?
Untable it.
No, if you put it on January.
Not if your motion was to table it to a specific date.
Yeah.
Pigeonholing us.
I'm not.
Yeah.
Let's just not table it. Let's just, Eric, tomorrow, start making the calls. Let's plan a work session.
Can do that?
Okay.
We're gonna have to vote.
It'll be helpful if, well, I'll start making the calls. The more I know what dates are good and bad, and the more current continuing council members can tell me that, it helps. I still, making sure enough public awareness with enough advance time is, we can do it whenever you like, but that will be a factor.
Are we accepting motions?
I think you have one you need to deal with.
Quick
Okay.
procedural question, Mayor, if I may, quick.
Yes.
If we don't table it, we have to vote on it tonight.
Correct. You have a motion to adopt in a second. That's on the table.
Yeah.
Still. I mean, that's,
Holy moly, yeah.
that is,
Done.
that is before council for your consideration.
Okay.
So
Now I see what
yeah,
you're doing.
there is still a motion to adopt that has to be
Yeah.
dealt with.
Yeah, so if we, I'm not saying I'm making a motion, but if I were to make a motion to table until January 24th, trying to do it before December 13th for a work session, I think it's too quick. We've got business owners, we have property owners, we have the holidays, we have staff schedules.
You look at the calendar of events I just went through, I think you have something every night this week.
Yeah.
I mean,
For personal schedules, I have something every night this week and next week. You know, it's difficult. So I think if we, again, I'm not making that motion, but if we did make that motion, then we could have a work session maybe January 10th. Was there an issue with that meeting? Have it before that meeting. That gives 2 weeks if there are potential changes. Or if not, then that gives plenty of time for staff to do what they need to do to then bring it back up for a vote on January 24th.
Yep, it's a good suggestion.
Mayor, if I could weigh in, I hate to weigh in and create more consternation, but perhaps it's appropriate to table it to December 13th, and you could re-table it to January 24th if you want to do that, but if you can address it on the 13th, you could address it. That may be a way to avoid having the inability to consider it on December 13th. And with
Make a
that,
motion to table to December 13th.
I would second that.
All right.
Okay, let's call the roll on that motion. And then we can get some feedback that way on what dates are looking good in January.
Gil, I was about ready to say that.
All right, we need to take the roll, call the roll on that one.
Mayor Grossman?
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson?
Yes.
Councilmember Chance?
Yes.
Councilmember Bradburn?
Yes.
Councilmember Stricula?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Gilb?
Yes.
Councilmember Hunterlaw?
Yes.
All right, I think we're done with that one. So item 21 is committee reports. Does anybody have one? Finance Committee met, but we went over that extensively. Anybody? All right, let's move on to item 22, old and new business.
Mayor,
Yes.
can I speak? I have a couple things. I have three things, actually. The first one is a question for our law director. I noticed that House Bill 458, which was sponsored by Representative Hall from Middletown, had sponsored a bill that will eliminate the August special elections, except when held to nominate or elect candidates for the United States House of Representatives. The bill's sponsor stated that the amendment is being drafted to allow local governments to place tax issues on the August special election if they're going into a fiscal emergency. Then when you go to our charter, section 8.03 under special elections, it states the council may at any time by ordinance or resolution order a special election, the purpose of which shall be set forth in the ordinance or resolution. So does this charter, this section 8.03, overrule due to home rule authority? Will it overrule this House Bill 458 if passed?
Yes.
Okay.
How about
So it
that?
doesn't pertain to us. Got it.
Correct.
Good to know.
Right, by charter, you can set a special election whenever you want.
Okay. when I was reading that, I thought, that might impact us, because I know we have a couple different things pending. Then, hold on one second, let me find my next one. The Ohio Department of Natural Resources announced the approval of over $5.2 million through the Nature Works grant program to improve recreation opportunities across the state. The funds were allocated to 115 projects in 79 counties. Projects will include the acquisition of new parklands and development of playgrounds, trails, restrooms, baseball fields, basketball courts, tennis and pickleball courts, swimming pools, etc. But, so when I looked at our budget, I noticed that we have $2.3 million budgeted for ball fields and $100,000 budgeted for playground improvements for McKeno Park. And then when I went to see what counties and what projects were passed, hoping to see Mason on there, the only, Lebanon is the only city within Warren County that had any of these projects approved. Could we get the finance committee, the next finance committee that comes in, to review this and see how we can apply for those?
Yes, we can have a finance committee specific on that. We have participated in those. We've received NatureWorks grants. That budget item that you're seeing is in that maybe, or depending. One of the things it's depending on is some outstanding grant applications. Both.
Okay, so have we applied for this specific one?
I'm not aware that we have any outstanding applications there. Okay.
So maybe we can get some money for that. That'd be great. And then the last thing, and this doesn't really pertain to City Council directly, but it's kind of fun, and so I thought I would just bring it up. There recently was just passed, and it was presented by Senator Wilson, who is our senator here in this district, and he passed a financial literacy curriculum. And it's going to require students entering the 9th grade for the first time on or after July 1st of 2022 to complete 1/2 unit of financial literacy instruction as part of the required high school curriculum. And there's certain requirements that the teacher has to have a certain license, and those fees will be reimbursed. So it's really, I'm really happy to see that, because I really feel like our students just are not given the information that they really need in life to just survive. It's amazing. Obviously, I'm an accountant, and I have hired bookkeepers before who are in their 20s or 30s, and believe it or not, they do not know how to write a check, which is just mind-boggling to me. So I'm really happy to see this, and I just, because it was our senator who passed this, I thought I would bring it up. So it's really a great thing. That's all I have.
Thank you. Anybody else? Member Honorlaw.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to address one of the residents that got up and spoke that was going to be disagree but not be disagreeable. I didn't catch his name. So I appreciate him coming and his comments tonight. I think there were a few disagreeable comments where he called me Biden and staying in a basement or something. That's not very pleasant. And if he knows me at all, it's very difficult to be an activist, which is what I am and what I've been since '09 when I marched for the Tea Party in downtown Cincinnati. It's very difficult to be an activist and still be hiding in a basement somehow. So I'm not sure if he just doesn't know me or know what I do, but he'll be soon to find this out, starting after December 1st. But and then, yeah, he did mention I am vice chair of the GOP. That predates any time I spent on council. Not sure what that had to do with anything. The point that I wanted to make, well, he brought up the development. So, and maybe he'll come back and I'll get a chance maybe to talk to him. But, oh, is he? Oh, good. Thank you. So I'm sorry I didn't catch your name. But there was so there's a welcome visitor, so you get to come back up if you want to clarify some of this for me. And maybe you're not sure, when you were mentioning the development, that there was a quid pro quo between the chamber and the CDC going to be receiving money from the new council and the current council members, and they supported them. So there was a reason why they would support certain members, because these members, as soon as I'm out of here, are going to vote to give taxpayer money to the chamber and the CDC. It's going to happen immediately. They bought the votes. Yeah, watch it happen. And then you want to mention why I didn't attend the chamber's debate for that reason. The chamber we had seen the emails where they were going to start rating and ranking their members, so there was no reason to participate in that debate. The sanctuary city, I thought you mentioned, was a land use ordinance, and we keep saying that's over and over again. That is the role of the government, and so all it does is keep the abortion clinics out. It's not about rehashing Roe versus Wade. And then the other point was about being a Republican for so long. So maybe you've been a Republican long enough to know that there are some people that are just Republican name only, and we call those rhinos. And in Mason, you can't hardly get elected as a Democrat. So you have to vote in a primary and get the R next to their name. Then they get to run on office. They get elected saying they're Republican, but they're really Democrats. That's what a rhino is. So either we have rhinos.
Audience, I need you guys to just be quiet. Member Honorla needs to redirect his comments to the chair. There's another opportunity during recognition of visitors.
All right.
We all have a right to express ourselves freely. Allow him to express himself freely, just like we have allowed you to express yourselves freely. Member Honorla.
And hopefully I'm not being disagreeable. I'm just disagreeing with some of his comments and trying to show that a little more information on some of this might change a perspective and see at least on where my point of view was coming from. So thank you, Mayor.
Okay, I'm sorry. That got a little wild there, didn't it? Okay, anybody else with old new business? I have a couple of items. I need to make some appointments. And so I just have 4, and this is for ZBA. Bernard Kiesling, Mark Burrell, Margie Murray, Barbara Hogan for Zoning Board of Appeals. Oh, it's tomorrow. Okay, so it wouldn't, you didn't tell me that. Please be quiet. They've been long overdue. They got. One moment, please. No, you didn't give me their contact information, but they were so expired. So we'll just wait on that. Okay. All right, technical difficulty. I didn't realize when I got my list of, we have some very, very expired terms on the Zoning Board of Appeals that got overlooked. I wasn't told that they had a meeting actually tomorrow, so apologies for that confusion. It's okay. It's not a big deal, but I just thought it was something that I needed to get done today. It's just part of my responsibility, but I wasn't told about a meeting scheduled tomorrow. I didn't catch that, okay? So you guys don't have to get all wound up out there. It's just a mistake.
And just for clarity, the way the boards and commissions work is individuals serve until their successor is named. They have a term. That term can expire if the mayor at that time, and it is rare, and we're at a point where almost all of them are a few months ago, maybe were in line, in current terms. There's often vacancies, often expired terms. The charter allows folks to continue to serve in a term that may be expired until a successor is named. So I think that's really what we're talking about here. There's no problem with the meeting tomorrow. Current members could continue if they haven't had a successor named. So that's.
Sorry, we'll just leave that for the next one. Sorry about that. I didn't have all the information I needed. I just thought that I was supposed to get that done. Okay. some thoughts on things that are positives that this council has accomplished, real quickly. We had the largest, most comprehensive small business recovery programs in the nation on a per capita basis. And that was something that this city accomplished with the help of the CIC. And that is something that I'm very grateful for. And Vice Mayor Mike Gild, thank you for your service on the CIC. And I think that is something that we should be proud of in this city. And I noticed that during the campaign that got mentioned. So that's great that it's finally some of us are coming on board to support that. We're starting to make progress on golf center improvements, which is really exciting. And we have a new director of the golf course. And things are happening there. And that is great news. We'll get there and we'll have the best looking grass you can imagine in a couple of years. In the last 2 years, we've seen the culmination of the Mason Aquatic Center, which is very exciting and is going to put Mason on the map. I'd so hoped the 50-meter pool would be open by now, but it's almost ready. So big things to come on that big pool. We also had the culmination of McKeno Park, a new playground at what my kids used to call the Dinosaur Park, Pine Hill, a beautiful new playground there, and lots of other park improvements, including at Heritage Oak Park. We have a bridge that's shining a little brighter. Thank you, Councilmember Chance, for that. And I learned by reading the resolution, one of the resolutions prepared tonight, we've had over $600 million in capital improvements in 2 years, and that is incredible. 4 years, excuse me. No, in
Capital investment.
investment,
That's not
excuse
city.
me.
Yeah.
Excuse me, investments, sorry, it's late, wrong word. All right, so those are all great things. We've become a Purple Heart City, thank you to the efforts of our Veterans Committee. That's very meaningful. The banners adorning our community are beautiful. There's a lot that has gone very, very well with this council and in this community, and we are grateful for that. And we are working on ways to improve downtown Mason, to look at infrastructure changes. We've begun that process. Revived that process. It's not a process that wasn't tried for many times. And of course, we didn't get as far as I would have hoped in the last 2 years, but there have been lots of tries and lots of failures over the different council cycles over the years. And then lastly on my list, I just want to take a moment to, and I'll keep this as brief as I can, I just want to reiterate that I do support the public's ability to voice their opinion in a referendum vote, but I also supported the process in us honoring the job that we committed to do as council members, and I think that was important. And I don't remember at any time, myself anyways, not listening to the public and not taking in input. And I know there are people here in this audience tonight that were at our policy and legislation committees that asked us questions. Thanks, that's another one. That asked us questions and raised concerns, and we made modifications to that legislation. So it wasn't something that came out of East Texas with no Mason input. It was crafted for the local level, and we got advice from our law director when we ran into an issue with creating a right of action at the local level. We changed that and modified that because the state of Ohio hasn't got the local government set up for that. At least the Ohio Revised Code is silent on that matter. And those people know that, and they were there. And we also added language to modify the text so that it was explicitly clear, expressly clear, that this was it all pertained to abortion services provided in the city of Mason, not outside the city of Mason. And so that's right, there aren't any. And so the claims that somehow a woman's choice is changed whatsoever within the city of Mason are just false. And it's no wonder that the public is confused about that, because they're getting confusing messages and messages that aren't factual. And as I'm speaking and sharing facts, I'm being heckled. I don't know if the microphones are picking that up. But there's no legislation on a woman's body to create a land ordinance that only penalizes physicians and providers in a practice that would try to locate here and provide that service in the city of Mason. So all of that was blown out of proportion and context and used for political purposes, I would say, from at least some people in this room. You may have noticed, stop heckling and listen. It didn't help me politically at all, but I felt convicted that this was the right decision to make for our community. And new council members, you will encounter difficult decisions to make, and you've got to be brave and courageous to make those. And I'll leave you on this. I am a Christian, I am a woman of faith, but that wasn't the basis for my decision on this ordinance. The basis for my decision really rests in science and what science shows me. We know that when a mother and father come together and cells, so I'm trying to keep this rated G, when the magical thing happens and a human being is created, in an instant, a new individual with its own set of DNA is formed instantaneously. It's a marvelous, ingenious thing that occurs. And that person has never before existed and never again can be. It's a unique individual. Science shows us that. We know a whole lot more since 1973 with a ruling on Roe versus Wade. But we know that an abortion, simply put, ends an innocent human life because we know that that's a human being in that mother's body. And we know that that human being is dependent on that mother's body for a period of time for its survival. And then after it's born, it's dependent on people and their bodies taking care of that little individual who is unique. Unique, the only one that ever was or ever could be. That individual has to be cared for in order to survive. Nothing about the legislation that we passed changes that. And nothing about the legislation that we passed changes a woman's options in Mason to decide what she wants to do with that little creature, that unique individual. If she chooses to terminate that life, she has to go outside of Mason to do that, because she always has, because those services aren't provided here. So it was necessary because we felt that we could prevent it from happening in the future. And if it's so important for you to have those services provided in Mason, I don't think that reflects the preference of the vast majority of our residents and our electorate. But I do think it reflects the feelings that some of you have. But I don't think that all voters or most of the voters in Mason would want to have a facility located in Mason. I don't think that's in the best interest of our community, and that's why I made that decision. It wasn't because I'm a religious zealot, and I've listened for months, insults made at people of faith. And it's hard to listen to, but that's our job, and we sat up here and listened to it. But there's a scientific principle. There's a scientific principle, and I can promise you, Ms. Keeler, nobody wants to be all in your body, okay? We don't, and this legislation doesn't do that. This legislation does not do that. All right, so I just wanted to clear that up. That's my end of old and new business. And now, if nobody else has anything else, item 23 is recognition of visitors. Mr. Hackey, come on up and welcome. And congratulations to you. I'm sorry I didn't get to acknowledging you and Councilmember-elect Barbara Berry Spaeth in the beginning of the meeting. I didn't see you in the crowd, but we're glad you're here.
Thank you. Mark Hackey, 3620 Dunlop Court. Just 2 points I'd like to make, Mr. Hunterlaw. One, I have been a Republican since 1979. I have voted in every major election, and I have voted in every local election here in Mason since I've been here for 19 years. Every one of those as a Republican. But I do have gray matter in here that I'm capable of using, and I will not be dictated to by any party on how I will vote or how I will feel or how I will act on anything. It's not going to happen. So if you want to call me a rhino, by all means, call me a rhino. I don't care. In fact, I'll wear that badge proudly if it means that I act with integrity and do what I say I will do.
Audience,
I had one other point. Where was I going with that? Even more importantly, speaking of integrity, do not ever accuse me of anything untoward. I did not buy this election. I did not do anything to get the chamber to get me elected. You did not win based on your actions, and I believe it was a statement to you that maybe you should think about some of the things that you have done. And you shaking your head no means that you have the inability to listen to other people and potentially even accept that maybe on some points, I'm not saying all, but on some, that maybe you were wrong. That happens. We heard somebody in here say tonight, we're not all perfect. I think you remember that. You're not perfect. So maybe do a little bit of self-reflection on this, and instead of blaming us for your loss, maybe do a little self-reflection and figure out why you didn't get reelected, instead of trying to cast all this nonsense about buying our election through the chamber. That's ridiculous. Don't do that.
Audience. All right, anybody else in recognition of visitors? All right, seeing there are none, it's time for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All right, good night, everybody.